metals, and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760 or visit online at rrbi.co. Reuters reports Ray Tomlinson, considered to be the godfather of email, has died, according to his employer, Raytheon Company. Tomlinson was 74. Raytheon spokesman Mike Doble said in a statement, "A true technology pioneer, Ray was the man who brought us email in the early days of networked computers." Doble said Tomlinson died on Saturday morning, but he did not know if he was at home and did not have a confirmed cause of death. Tomlinson worked in the company's Cambridge, Massachusetts office. An article in the Sydney Morning Herald reported that Tomlinson had died of a suspected heart attack. The tech world reacted with sadness over the passing of Tomlinson, somewhat of a cult hero for his 1971 invention of a program for ARPANET, the Internet's predecessor, that allowed people to send person-to-person messages to other computer users on other servers. A tweet from Gmail's official Twitter account read, "Thank you, Ray Tomlinson, for inventing email and putting the @ sign on the map." Internet pioneer Vinton Cerf called his death very sad news. Tomlinson was inducted into the Internet Hall of Fame in 2012. This has been FPP Radio News, online at fppradio.com.
Americans across the nation made their voices heard this week as they demanded more mind-blowing guitar solos. Calling for the solos to be, quote, face-meltingly cool and go on for well over 10 minutes, Americans stressed that all guitar solos from now on should be equally as kick-ass as those in Van Halen's Hot for Teacher and AC/DC's Thunderstruck, or even better.
It should start out really slow, and then get faster and faster until they're all the way up at the top of the guitar neck and bending the notes like crazy, so it's like, and then there's all this awesome pyrotechnic stuff going off in the background. They should all be like that.
And in this week's local news, a report noted that on its surface, Glenbrook, Ohio is a small town like any other, a peaceful, all-American town. And yet, the report's authors added, if you only look closer, what you find may surprise you. In other news, a man is just having one of those decades where he doesn't feel like doing anything.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. We'll give you our toll-free numbers as well as the Skype username for you to bring up whatever happens to be on your mind. In the studio tonight, you have Ian.
And Rich Paul.
And, of course, you can join us online. Head on over to freetalklive.com and enjoy the features that we have waiting for you there. Once again, freetalklive.com. Interesting headline about New York City. Not the freest place in the world, arguably one of the biggest governments in the world, but New York City appears to have gotten so big, its government, its police department, they've got their own traffic cop division. I think their traffic division has more employees, more cops than the town of Keene, New Hampshire has residents. So there's a lot, there's a lot of bureaucrats in the city of New York. But according to Thrillist.com, city officials have quietly announced that starting today, March 7th, that you will no longer be arrested for certain low-level offenses in Manhattan. So those low-level offenses could include, or apparently do include, public consumption of alcohol.
Now, the first question is, you will no longer be arrested for it. Does that mean that it's legal, or does it mean that you're going to get a ticket and have to go to court and fight it?
Excellent question. I do actually have the official press release about that here. Yeah, it looks like they are doing summonses. So they will still hand out a ticket. But it's still kind of a decriminalization, kind of.
Well, it's definitely an improvement that they're not arresting people directly. A lot of times, if you get arrested, even if it takes you 14, 16 hours to bail out, that can be enough to cost you a job. So
that's a great point.
Yeah, it can be. It's an improvement.
The story here from Thrillist.com says also, apparently they're not going to arrest you if you're publicly urinating as well in Manhattan. Also, bad subway behavior like riding between cars and taking up more than one seat unless police deem that it is, quote, necessary for public safety reasons, unquote. Additionally, the Office of the Manhattan District Attorney will no longer prosecute low-level infractions, meaning getting caught sipping a beer on your walk home from a bodega, for example, will be a significantly less serious offense, according to a report by Gizmodo. To be clear, it's still against the law to drink in public under the new policy, but now you might get slapped with a summons and a fine instead of ending up in handcuffs, but in Manhattan only. In other words, New York isn't about to transform into a boozy party full of go-cups and lax laws like New Orleans. Instead, city officials said the changes are designed to free up police and criminal justice resources used on low-level offenses so they can be allocated to focus on more violent crime. Which I don't think is such a bad idea.
No, I'd say that's definitely a step in the right direction. It's somebody does have to be out there dealing with robbers, rapists, and murderers, and I'd prefer that those people not be paid with stolen money, but so long as somebody's getting paid with stolen money, I'd rather have them actually offering some defense rather than just harming random citizens.
Right. And as you were saying, not only does it take hours if you end up getting arrested and then having to be processed, and of course, I've never been arrested, thankfully, in New York City, but I imagine it's a little longer than it takes in New York. Probably takes longer in New York City than it does in Keene, New Hampshire, where the level of people, the physical amount of arrestees that's in the police station awaiting processing is probably 0 to 1 in Keene, New Hampshire, and in New York City, there's probably a line of arrestees that are waiting up. They have underground processing and holding areas I've heard of called the Tombs.
Yes, the Tombs is the main, effectively the county jail of New York City. Although people can stay in the Tombs, my understanding is for something like 2 or 3 years before they get moved to a prison. Sometimes that happens, and I don't know exactly how the law. I don't know exactly how the law is different and what causes that, but It
just sounds like a place I would not want to visit. The Tombs.
Yeah, it's not the name you're looking for. Yeah, this is not the hotel you're looking for.
Right. So I feel like you not only would you be subjected to a long period of waiting and then having to get bailed out and whatever, or just even if you're just going to be processed for PR bail. Personal recognizance, as they call it. Still, you've got to wait until you get PR, until you get the bail commissioner in, until he sees you. And in New Hampshire, where again the burden on the system is fairly light, it still can take a few hours, as you pointed out. New York's probably going to take longer, and that's time that they could be using to process actual real criminals who've created a victim. And so it sounds like this might be making the system a little bit more efficient. Now, under the current NYPD policy, cops can determine whether or not to arrest someone based on their existing background or whether they have outstanding warrants, city officials explained in their announcement, which you can check for additional details. But if you're into reading police policies. The bottom line, if you want to enjoy an adult beverage in the giant outdoor bar that is Manhattan, you no longer have to sweat getting arrested for it. Again, that goes into effect today in Manhattan, where low-level offenses will no longer be subject to arrest unless it is so-called necessary for public safety reasons. And I think we want to see more decriminalization of things. New Hampshire is where we're doing the show from, is a little behind the ball, but the surrounding New England states have done a good job of decriminalizing cannabis. For instance, in Massachusetts, if you are in possession of, I believe it's up to an ounce of cannabis, they can only hit you with a summons. They can only give you that fine. And it actually, I don't even know if it's a summons, because from what I understand, the way the law was written when they did the decriminalization, the marijuana users figured out that if they didn't pay the fine, that there was no actual enforcement mechanism, meaning that the way the law was written, if you don't pay the fine, the state can't do anything.
Really?
You didn't hear about that?
That seems strange. Now,
it is strange.
I have been told of one loophole that exists, which is, and this is Massachusetts you're talking about.
That's right.
I've been told that in Massachusetts, because it is decriminalized, it's considered a civil infraction in Massachusetts, and because Massachusetts law doesn't require you to present ID to police unless you has a reasonable suspicion that you've committed a criminal act. My understanding is that people who were down at the smokeout in Boston, if they got a weed ticket, would just give a fake name, and the cops couldn't force them to produce ID. So that may be the loophole that you're talking about. It's it doesn't seem like that law would have to have a special enforcement phrase in it, because there's nothing special in like the speeding laws or whatever to say how they're going to collect the money, but the courts certainly do manage to collect those things.
I forget the exact explanation for it, Rich, but it was my understanding that whether it was the real name of the person or not, it was basically impossible, the way it was written, for it to be sent to prosecution. So the idea was they can write the ticket, they can give you the ticket, but if you don't pay it, it's over. Like, there's no further steps that the state can take in Massachusetts. That's my understanding. And word was that spread very quickly among the marijuana users, because somebody figured that out, and then the word got around real fast that, hey, if you get caught, the worst that's happening to you is they take your weed. Right. So they take the weed, give you the ticket, then you ignore the ticket, and they can't do anything to you. You can share your thoughts here with us tonight. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. Speaking of dumb tickets, apparently you now have to have ID to ride a bicycle in a portion of Australia. And let's go first, though, to Dan, listening in California. Dan, you're on Free Talk Live with Ian and Rich Paul.
Hi, Ian and Rich. I'm so sorry that Mark's not there. I ain't gonna lie, I'm kind of partial to Mark. I love him on the show. So
he might be joining us in a little bit. Go ahead, Dan.
Oh, okay. Well, I was calling because I'm a podcast listener, and I was listening to Saturday and Sunday's show, and it was very frustrating to sit here and listen to three white guys talk about the African American community. And
I'm sorry, when were we talking about the African American community?
This was on the weekend.
Oh, okay. Groovy.
Saturday night. Not you, Mr. Paul. Sorry about that.
I just wanted to make sure I knew what you were saying.
No. So on Saturday night, there were so many. They were laying out the case for white blacks. And I hear the bumper music coming in. I'll let you wrap this up, Ian, and I'll come back.
All right, stand by, Dan. We will come back to you here. We'll continue the discussion on race or whatever you want to talk about here. Got some other interesting news internationally as well, with the ridiculous situation in Venezuela where they are suing a website in the United States for revealing the black market price of the Boulevard.
Every once in a while you get information that's worth changing your life for. This is one such time. You can save up to and beyond 25% on all purchases at Amazon. You probably heard of Bitcoin and just not thought much about it. You certainly know that you can get competitive pricing at Amazon, but now you can get a 25% discount on nearly everything you need to live. I've just given you a huge raise, and all you have to do is claim it. You go to saveitpurse.com and open an account. Do this right now. Don't wait. Then you fund the account with Bitcoin. You can buy them through expresscoin.com with a check or money order. There are other ways to get Bitcoin, but that's fast, safe, and easy. This information is worth you changing the way you do things. Go to saveitpurse.com right now, get signed up, and cash in on the huge raise I'm offering you. 15 to 25% off of everything at Amazon through saveitpurse.com. It's saveatpurse.com.
Hello?
Congratulations.
For what?
For losing all that weight. How'd you do it so fast?
ASAP.
ASAP what? What's that mean?
Are you ready to get as skinny as possible, as soon as possible, as simple as possible, and as sexy as possible?
I'm listening.
Then get with the ASAP program. It's real and it works. No smooth talk, no slick advertising, and no exaggerated claims of success.
I've got to know more.
Welcome to ASAP, as slim as possible. Whether you have 10, 20, or 50 pounds to lose, ASAP is your weight loss answer. ASAP targets the abnormal fat reserves and makes them available to be burned as fuel and contains no caffeine or hormones. Order ASAP at wholesale prices or join the team to share the business with others. Visit GCNteam.com or call 877-878-4203. GCNteam.com or call 877-878-4203. Lose weight and look great with ASAP, as slim as possible.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of
stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com. You can get emailed announcements and participate in contests via our email updates list. Plus, we have a Twitter account that you can follow and a Facebook page where you can become a fan. So visit news.freetalklive.com to get news about Free Talk Live as soon as it's announced and the way you want it delivered at news.freetalklive.com. That's news.freetalklive.com.
Have you felt different almost your entire life? Like the way things are run never made any sense? They've tried to get you to believe that you couldn't handle making all of your own decisions, that your lives had to be governed by a set of rules based on punishing everyone for the mistakes of a few. It's been a long journey, but the Free State Project has finally met its goal of 20,000 participants. Early movers have already accomplished so much, but we still need your help to show the world we can build a shining beacon of liberty. Stop making excuses and join us here in New Hampshire. Visit freestateproject.org.
You're listening to the best liberty-oriented audio streamed around the clock, on the air and online. This is the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
It's Free Talk Live. Join us on the radio here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. We do have Skype as well. Our Skype username is LRN.FM. So feel free to reach out to us that way. You can bring up what you want. We've got a ridiculous story from Venezuela coming up here in moments. But first, we're going to go back to Dan, who wants to talk about race. But first, I also want to let you know about ProXPN. They can give you your privacy back on the internet because by default, you just don't have it. You've got to take steps to ensure that you have privacy, and ProXPN is an excellent step to take. It's a virtual private network, and they encrypt your data right from your computer or mobile device. ProXPN offers OpenVPN, which is the gold standard of network encryption. They've got apps for Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, and there's Linux support as well. Unlike other VPNs, ProXPN keeps no logs of your activities whatsoever. With more servers being added all the time, ProXPN works hard to give you greater speed and security compared to other VPNs. And if you're a Windows user, ask ProXPN about changing your DNS settings for even greater anonymity. They take credit card and Bitcoin. So if you use code FTL50, you'll get 50% off of the regular monthly price for the lifetime of an annual account. It could be cheaper per month than a good cup of coffee. Use the internet the way it was meant to be used by going to proxpn.com right now and use code FTL50 to take back the privacy that is your right. That's code FTL50 at proxpn.com. As we go to the phones here, to the fun, Dan is in the Bay Area of California. Dan, you're calling in reference to what occupied a good amount of some of the show this weekend. I forget which night it was, but there were some people who were calling in. Go ahead.
It was both nights, Saturday and Sunday, and that's normally on call. I love to sit back and listen to the show while I'm at work. It gets me through. I've been listening to you guys for over 10 years, and I love you guys for that. It takes up, makes my job not so unbearable. But as I was listening, there's just, I guess, some definitions that I want to go over with you guys because.
Sure, Dan. Can you do me a favor before you hit the definitions? Maybe back off your microphone about an inch or so. It's a little overmodulated.
How about right now? Better?
Not really, but it could just be something in our phone system. Sorry about that. So just go ahead with your thoughts.
Okay, so here's what I'll do. I'll take you guys off Bluetooth.
Oh, usually that does make a difference. Go ahead.
Okay, so what I was saying is that, I want to go over some definitions if that's okay with you because, Ralph from New Jersey always calls and he's always talking about white guilt and Obama's the animal. And I'm just like, oh, gosh, can we just go over some definitions? First of all, Black Lives Matter is not a movement of pro-black racism. It's just a movement to stop unarmed black kids from being killed by police. That's all we want. I don't know if that's equality, but we just want black kids to stop being killed by unarmed black kids being killed by police. And the reason why, and I know, Ian, you sometimes maybe don't understand this, but the reason why white lives matter can be seen as offensive is because when white people get killed, someone goes to jail. When someone black is killed, no one goes to jail. So that's the reason we know white lives matter. We know this.
Could I interrupt for a sec there? I think if you look at the Free State Project, or the Free Thought Project website or the Cop Block website, you'll find that police murder with impunity people of all races. And
that's what I've
people
seen.
that you wouldn't expect, shooting a school teacher, white 23 in the face as she's trying to drive away from a party is just one case that I can think of the top of my head that made me think, huh? But there. And believe me, I do believe that there is a disproportionate amount of police violence that falls on black people.
That seems true. Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a more general case of black people being over-policed in this country in general. In that black neighborhoods are watched very closely. If you go to a lot of places, you'll see cops hanging out in black neighborhoods just looking for people on the street to harass, and you don't see that as much in more affluent neighborhoods.
And I agree with you totally. And that's another definition I was getting ready to go back to, because Ralph always throws this up: white privilege and white guilt. Those are two different. Privilege is the idea, like, this weekend, I went to Denny's with my family, my girlfriend and my daughter. Before I had finished eating, we were asked, before we had got anywhere close to even getting the food, we were asked to pay for the meal before we even got the food. You know, it must be nice not to have to deal with that. That's white privilege. I can name, blacks, we know it's a common occurrence. It happens to us all the time. Where we're asked to pay for meals, we're followed through grocery stores or malls. You know, I've been followed so many times, and I'm a college degree veteran, doesn't matter. I don't have a police record, doesn't matter. They look at you and they see you, and you don't have to deal with that. In the black community, don't feel I would have to deal with that if you weren't black. That's a white privilege, not a white racism. And then another thing I wanted to go over real quick was that the gentleman who was hosting Saturday night asked an older black gentleman, well, do you go around blaming the current Germans for the Holocaust? And I didn't understand that line of questioning, because no one's saying that the current whites today are responsible for slavery. No one's blaming white people today for slavery, cattle slavery of 200 years ago. No one's saying that. But I also just want you to acknowledge that those influences are still going through society today. My grandfather was the grandson of a slave, so I mean, it's not that long ago. There were times when my father was a veteran and he couldn't participate in the GI Bill. So it's just, there's so many things that go on. But then you hear, like, it just gets swept under the rug on a Saturday night by three white guys. It's just like, it's disturbing. And I just wanted to say that.
Well, it's kind of disturbing to discount somebody's opinion because of their race. Also, I don't do that.
And I'm not doing that.
But yet there's a common thing that you'll hear out of and that you'll basically what you get if you happen to be white and you have an opinion that people don't like is they say, oh, you're just a white guy, you don't know what it's like to be poor, Bernie Sanders says, if you're white. Well, that's not true. There are lots of poor white people.
Yeah, you've been sleeping on a couch for a while, so not anymore. You're out of that time frame, but for quite a while you were very poor.
I was literally living on a porch because I was in debt and I wanted to pay it off. So there are things are bad for everybody in some ways, and I understand how these things can linger because my father is Armenian. And I don't know if you're familiar with this, but in 1915 there were about 1.5 million Armenians in the world, and the Turks decided to kill off 1 million of them. So 2/3 of the Armenians on the face of the earth were murdered. And my family came over here actually fleeing from that. They originally came from, or my father's side of this side came from Armenia, and it took a while before I could look at a Turk without going, holy something, he's going to kill me.
Hold that thought. If you want to continue the discussion, Dan, you may stand by. Our toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE, 855-450-3733. You can take control of the airwaves and bring up whatever's on your mind. And this is Free Talk Live.
Think body armor is just for commandos? Think again. In a collapse situation, you need to protect your entire family. Infidel Body Armor has created lightweight armor that repels AR-15 and AK-47 rounds. And priced at around $500, it won't break the bank. The whole kit weighs just 10 pounds, light enough for your 7-year-old or 70-year-old. Go to InfidelBodyArmor.com and get yours today. That's InfidelBodyArmor.com. Just won't quit.
Hunters, anglers, campers, and survivalists. Get back to nature. Expand your horizons with the highest quality, most versatile, unique slingshots and sling bows on the market at slingbow.com. Sling bow products are compact and models start from just $17.98. They're perfect for your bug out bag or storing in your vehicle. Give yourself and your loved ones the excitement and tradition of sling bow. A new frontier in archery and truly modern twist on this primitive survival tool. Feel the thrill only at slingbow.com.
Every once in a while, you get information that's worth changing your life for. This is one such time. You can save up to and beyond 25% on all purchases at Amazon. You probably heard of Bitcoin and just not thought much about it. You certainly know that you can get competitive pricing at Amazon, but now you can get a 25% discount on nearly everything you need to live. I've just given you a huge raise, and all you have to do is claim it. You go to saveitpurse.com and open an account. Do this right now. Don't wait. Then you fund the account with Bitcoin. I know this sounds unbelievable, but at my house, we saved as much as 45% off of a new item on Amazon. This information is worth you changing the way you do things. Go to saveitpurse.com right now, get signed up, and cash in on the huge raise I'm offering you. 15 to 25% off of everything at Amazon through saveitpurse.com. It's saveatpurse.com.
Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organizations to show up at any emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare for the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411 has had thousands of installs, and of course it's covered by the BIPCOT no government license. Cell 411 because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com.
Here's a chance to do a little activism while you're cruising Facebook, Twitter, or Google+. Between the LOL cats, the recipes, the hot girls, and the inspirational sunrise memes, Free Talk Live's posts pass by your newsfeed. Like them, comment. It gives us more exposure. If you don't see our posts, click like at facebook.freetalklive.com and then hover over it to click Get Notifications. It's an easy way to spread the ideas of liberty a bit further. I know you're busy, but you can spare that 1/10 of a calorie it takes to click on something. Facebook.freetalklive.com.
Money, power, and respect are all yours at CreditSuccessSecretsRevealed.com. Be seen as an industry leader. You can do it. The last application you filled out when it was time to hit submit, did your nerves spike? You didn't get the approval you seek, but there's a better way. We teach you exactly what to place into the right systems the right way the first time so you get approved. Get up to $100,000 in instant business credit. Many people will get cash on the spot. Use those two tools in your new corporate credit engine so you can walk into the bank and get your project funded today. It's all about today at CreditSuccessSecretsRevealed.com. Credit Success Secrets Revealed is explosive and ignites instant results. Dial 1-800-707-8719. That's 1-800-707-8719. 1-800-707-8719. Or just go to CreditSuccessSecretsRevealed.com.
While our satellite channel is free to listen to, it's not free for us. You can help us cover our satellite costs with the chip-in on the right side of the page at lrn.fm. Free.
It's Free Talk Live. You're invited here if you want to join us. 855-450-FREE is our toll-free number. We also have Skype. Skype username is LRN.FM. Joining you in studio, it's Ian.
And Rich Paul.
Rich here, courtesy of the Church of the Invisible Hand, which one can visit the website invisiblehand.church. And what is the Church of the Invisible Hand, Rich?
The Church of the Invisible Hand is a form of deism. We do not believe in any sort of miracles or the supernatural. We believe that the universe may have been created, but at this point, we as humans are on our own, and if we don't solve our own problems, they won't be solved.
Invisiblehand.church to learn more. We go back to Dan. He's in the Bay Area of California. Dan, you were calling in reference to a conversation that mostly happened Saturday night on the show between various different callers and the hosts. There was just some thoughts you wanted to share with us about race. Something was said, and I think you were referencing Brett Venat, the host of School Sucks Project, when he had asked a caller a question related to the Holocaust. And I think that what he was getting at there was the idea that, you know, there are terrible things that have happened in the past, no doubt about it, to various different people. And what I felt like he was trying to say, and maybe he didn't express it well or whatever, but I think what he was trying to say was, well, look, you know, that was a long time ago, and in both cases, both the Holocaust and chattel slavery, and there's, you know, we didn't do that.
Slavery was a long time ago, but if you're talking to an older black man, keep in mind that there were some horrible things happening in Selma, Alabama in 1960.
No doubt, but I was
that was
not alive.
8 years before I was born.
Right.
There were horrible things happening in you know, if you look at Push Move in Philadelphia
In the 70s.
when they were bombed by the police, that was during my lifetime. So it's not as clear cut as, and I've been over this line of logic with the Armenians and the Turks, where, you know, all the Turks that were out killing people in 1915, 100 years ago, are almost certainly dead. They'd be at least 120 now.
Yeah.
But that's not the case for racist Southern black or racist Southern sheriffs from the 1960s.
No, and I don't
people
think
who were killing civil rights workers and doing a lot of other bad things.
I don't think Brett was saying don't hold people responsible, but
Right.
I think what he was saying was don't hold me responsible because he didn't do that. Right?
Yeah.
He didn't do that. Stuff.
And no one, I've never heard anyone, I've never heard it in the African American community, whatever that means, state that, hey, people responsible today. Like, I always hear this thing about reparations. Black people no one's asking, the black community is asking for reparations. We understand how crazy that would even try to be. Like, I'm 90% black, but my great grandfather was white, so do I only get 90% of a check? I mean, like, that's so ridiculous. No one's asking for that. We just want equality. I don't want to be 9 times more likely to be killed by a police officer than Ian. And unfortunately, just because of the color of my skin, I am 9 times more likely to be killed by a police officer.
I believe
today.
it. You never heard me say that you weren't. I mean, I absolutely agree that the police seem to target blacks more often than they do whites, and it's probably true of Hispanics as well. But I haven't seen the numbers. But it certainly seems that way.
Well, okay. Right, and that's all I'm saying.
And police
and
tend to target poor people more so than rich people. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, but I would agree. But poor blacks have it worse. And I hate when people bring up skin color, but it's the fact of the matter. If I've got 4 bald tires and one's worse than the other one, I'm not going to say, well, they're all bald. No, we need to point out the one that's going to kill me tomorrow. I'm pointing out the one tire that's the baldest of all. That's all I'm saying. This tire needs some attention.
Yeah, and I understand where you're coming from there. Usually I post, I've never used the hashtag white lives matter. I do use in combination together the hashtag Black Lives Matter and the hashtag All Lives Matter. And I include both of them because I want to acknowledge all police brutality, but I also want to acknowledge that, yes, it falls on blacks more. But you can't solve that problem by shooting more white people. You got to solve it by shooting fewer people in general.
Yeah, absolutely true.
Absolutely. Ending the drug war would be a great start on that as well.
Oh, and absolutely. The drug war has been absolutely disastrous for the black community.
Dan, thank you for calling and sharing your thoughts tonight, man. I do appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Yep, my pleasure. Thank you.
If you haven't done it yet, friend me on Facebook.
Rich Paul on Facebook. So toll-free number here, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. And I think, bringing this issue up, it behooves us to discuss a little further as to, well, how do we get from here to there? Because I think all of us want to see less police violence, less unnecessary police violence against peaceful people, against people who have not harmed others. And it is a tough issue because the police are ensconced with power. They are sitting pretty up there, and they're in charge, and we're not. The people who are running the legislatures in the 50 states, the people in Washington, D.C., they love the cops. As far as they're concerned, there's no problem. And I mean, I'm making a very general statement. There are probably a few legislators who do understand that the police are out of control, but they're in the minority. Most people, when they, most people inside the government, when they see the police, they feel good. They feel like they're protected. They feel safe. They feel like these guys are good guys. Some of us who know more about the police feel in danger when the police are around because, maybe the cop is or is not maybe he's not out of control. Maybe he's not a rogue cop. But there are enough of them out there to where you don't know which ones are and aren't. If you're in a strange place, if you don't know the police, like we know the cops here in Keene, New Hampshire, because it's a small police department. But if you're in a place like New York City or some other big, Austin, some other big police department, where in Austin, last time I checked, they had 1,600 cops and the police chief wanted another 300. So they may have another 300 now. So let's just say there's 1,900 cops in the city of Austin, Texas. You're not likely going to encounter the same cop twice there. So when you encounter the police in a strange place like that, you don't know who you're dealing with. You don't know how off the handle they're going to fly when you do X, Y, or Z. And it's an intimidating, scary situation. But the people in the halls of power don't have that same experience. They get treated with kid gloves by the police. They get treated special. In New Hampshire, if you've got a state representative plate, they can't pull you over. You essentially are untouchable as a state representative. If you're driving from your home to the state capitol, you're immune from being pulled over. You can speed, and apparently you can't get pulled over for that. So they're just not in the same position as most of us as far as understanding the police and the violence that is inherent within the system, the abuse.
Come and see the violence inherent in the system.
Yeah, they don't get it, and they probably never will. We can sit in front of them and we can testify about it, and we can tell our personal stories, as you and I have both done, Rich, on various different bills in Concord, usually regarding marijuana and some of the harsh consequences that are being dealt out to people. But as long as the state reps haven't had that happen to their sons or daughters or something like that, then they're in the dark. And then they just have to take your word for it. And then it's your word versus the police. And we know what happens when it's your word versus the police is the police get believed by the people in government.
Yeah.
So how do we start to change that?
Not
an easy question.
Overthrow the state and start over?
Well, overthrowing the state. Now, that when you say that, people think violence. Is that what you mean?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that I would never violently resist a government. I don't think that there are enough people who are up in arms against the current government for that to be successful. And that's my big concern about the Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter movements is those two movements should be natural allies. They should not be beating on each other, and Native Americans also get killed a lot more than white people by police. Yep. But to me, I'm a big tent guy for the same reason I like Gary Johnson for the Libertarian nomination. I like the idea of a super inclusive anti-police brutality movement and anti-police racism movement.
I agree. You don't want to have the people who fundamentally agree about the police turned against one another and fighting with each other when they should be focusing on the mechanism of oppression, which is the system. Our toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. But how do we get from here to there? If you want to share your solution, please do. Free Talk Live.
I'm Steve Sidkowski, a former Wall Street insider. Right now, I'm holding a book that could change your life. It will show you investing strategies which could help you earn the kind of money you've always dreamed about. And right now, I'm giving this book away for free. So who needs to read it? If you're in the middle of your career and you worry you'll never have enough money to retire, you need to read this book. If you're already retired and your income isn't enough, you need to read this book. And if you don't want to be selling burgers at the age of 80, well, you need to read this free book. The reality is, you'll need at least $1 million to ever fully retire. If you're behind on that goal, you really need to read Like the Pros. And you can for free by calling 1-800-656-9549. Are you skeptical that it will deliver results? It's a free book, so what do you have to lose? Find out how at 1-800-656-9549. That's 1-800-656-9549. 1-800-656-9549.
It's about time something new came along for better selling and buying online. And I found it.
What now, Marge?
It's buysellmakeoffer.com.
Never heard of it.
It's a brand new company. That's why you've never heard of it. It's the newest and best way to sell any products online. I did all the research.
Sell my car?
Yes.
Our home?
Yep.
My golf bag?
Your golf clubs. All of them.
How about your purse collection hoard?
Hey, now.
You said any product.
Right. I did. We get 30 days free.
Really?
Packages starting from only $7.95. And buysellmakeoffer.com will never charge item fees, ever. Never. And this is cool. Listen to this. You can even use Skype or video to show your items.
That's cool.
Yes. All we have to do is go to the website, sign up, and then load our stuff to sell. I love this site.
Buysellmakeoffer.com.
Buysellmakeoffer.com. You got it?
Buysellmakeoffer.com.
Buysellmakeoffer.com. Better selling, better buying.
Understanding your credit score is the first step towards managing and improving it. This is Charlie Sundstrom with your Van Dyke Mortgage Minute. The most influential component of your credit score is your payment history. Almost equally as important is the amount you owe on credit accounts. Also impacting your score, but to a lesser degree, are the length of time you've utilized your credit, the number of new accounts, credit inquiries, and your various types of credit accounts. To help achieve or maintain a healthy credit score, have a system set up to assure your bills are always paid on time. Don't max out your cards. It's better to have a high credit limit with a low balance. Never close old accounts. The age of these can actually help your credit score. But don't be afraid to use your credit. You need several accounts in order to have a credit score. Just keep the corresponding payments within your means. For your mortgage pre-approval and refi needs, start by visiting VanDykeMortgage.com.
Corporate NMLS 3035. Van Dyke Mortgage is an equal housing lender. Charlie Sundstrom, NMLS 134251.
So you've heard all 3 hours of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, and you're still hungry for liberty-oriented audio content? Did you know that we have another 24/7 audio stream at LRN.FM? The Liberty Radio Network airs the latest episodes of some of the best liberty-oriented podcasts on the internet around the clock. In addition to recorded content, you'll also hear live shows like Free Talk Live, originating from our Keene, New Hampshire studio. So listen anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
This is your Robertson Roberts Brokerage Daily Precious Metals Update. In early trading Monday, gold is up $9 at $1,268 per ounce. Silver is 10 cents higher at $15.66 per ounce. Bitcoin is trading at $410 US. Robertson Roberts Brokerage has been helping customers buying and selling precious metals for nearly 40 years. How can we help you? Give us a call at 800-874-9760 or see us online at rrbi.co.
Do you love Twitter? Make sure you favorite the LRN.FM Twitter account so you can receive our tweets at twitter.lrn.fm. That's twitter.lrn.fm.
It's Free Talk Live. Join us on the radio, toll free, 855-450-FREE, 855-450-3733. We know there's a problem with police abuse. And it certainly does affect black people more often, I think, than it does white people. Whether it affects blacks more often than it does Hispanics, I'm not sure about that. But it does seem like police tend to be on the racist side. Oh, sorry, Rich, I had the wrong mic. Unmuted. Try now.
Probably depends on where you are.
That's probably true.
There's places where high percentages of the police force are black, and there are percentages where high percentages of the police force are Hispanic. So I would guess that you're probably best off if your race more or less matches the race of your police department.
Maybe, although I suspect you'll still find black officers oppressing black people and Hispanic officers oppressing Hispanic people.
Oh, I think you absolutely will, because
just maybe not at the same rates.
Yeah, I think what that will generally cut off, I think, is people who are doing it because they actually hate people of that race. And then what you've got left is
people wielding power.
People wielding power and people stereotyping it. And the fact that black people are generally more vulnerable to this sort of thing because they're not expected to have the money to take people to court and to fight back. Although that's not always the case.
So my question was, what do we do to get from where we are now, where there's a serious problem with police abusing people of all shapes and colors, to where we want to be, which is where the police are actually respectful towards peaceful people and they don't arrest peaceful people. We'll talk more about that, but let's go to your calls and thoughts. First up, Doug is listening in Chicago. You're on Free Talk Live. Hello, Doug.
Hello.
Hi there.
Well, to begin with, more white people are killed than black people. I don't know if you actually looked at the data.
More white people are killed
by a cop than black people. I don't know if you actually looked at the data, but I looked at the data before I came on there. I don't have it right in front of me, but
okay. But is it that are more black people killed than their proportion of the population? However,
correct.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that the data can verify too, and I haven't looked at that part. But more black people are probably targeted.
Okay.
But I mean, I think that it can really come down to an accountability issue. Here you have authority, and you have virtually no accountability. I mean, look. If I were the family member of the 19-year-old guy Hammond who had been killed, a white guy killed by a cop, and he got shot in the back, I'd be offended by people like Dan for the fact that pretty much what you're claiming to be that if he ain't black, then it won't matter.
No, I don't think Dan was saying that. I don't think Dan was saying that it doesn't matter if you're not black. I did not hear him say that.
Well, basically, he seemed to have higher confidence that a cop who killed a white guy would actually be prosecuted successfully for that crime.
I don't see the police generally being. I just generally don't see the police being prosecuted successfully at all for killing anyone in general.
Right.
It's pretty rare.
Right.
Yeah.
You're totally correct, Ian. You have the data to back that up. It would not matter if you're black, white, Latino, Asian. I mean, if you're a cop, you can pretty much get away with murder. I mean, I don't care if the individual killed were white or black. Look, if they got out of the car and they took out, a phone or whatnot, and the cop shot them, the cop should be charged. I mean, it should not matter white or black. We have an accountability issue here, and people like Dan, and he acted like a pretty great guy on air here. I mean, I'm not trying to make him out to be a bigot or anything, but they only look at color. We're not talking about a color issue here. We're talking about an accountability issue.
Well, I mean, I
would say we're dealing with both. And the thing is, fixing the accountability issue would, I think, fix a lot of the racial issue in that if you have to say why you shot that guy, if that question is asked seriously and the answer evaluated critically, then people who presumably were shot because they were black or because they were Hispanic, that should come out in the wash, because people, the police should be able to show he was pointing a weapon at me. He was actually a threat to me. And so I think that would go at least part of the way. I think that part of the way is going to be time. The younger generation is so much less racist than my generation, which in turn is so much less racist than the generation before me, that I think that a lot of these things over time are going to go away by themselves.
True, but time isn't necessarily going to solve the issue of people wielding power over others.
Well, absolutely. Time alone will not solve the problem of people wielding power. And whenever you have government, you have a privileged class, which are the people who actually work for that government. And that privilege may extend... Go ahead.
I think that you're incorrect. I think that you're incorrect, and I think that Dan had been incorrect. You get the accountability issue put in there, and you take care of all of it. I mean, you have people that are coming in that want to dominate people. That pretty much can be it. You have people who want to become a cop, want to dominate people. They want to control people. They want to be above the law.
Many of them do.
Put the law into play, right? And when you put the law into play and you hold them accountable, you take care of all of it. You know, it won't matter if you're white or
Look,
black.
I'm with you on the accountability thing, but I don't think it's fair to disregard where Dan is coming from in that as a black man, he feels as though he is targeted in some way for being black. And there's evidence that shows that that's the case. We talked about how here in New Hampshire, specifically in Cheshire County, New Hampshire, where we're doing the show from, the southwestern corner of the state, you're 10 times more likely if you're a black male to be arrested for marijuana possession than white males.
But rates of using marijuana are equal between blacks and whites approximately in America. So it's not a matter of more black people are committing the crime and therefore more black people are getting arrested. It's more like black people are over-policed, and therefore black people are getting caught, even though they use it the same rate, at a much higher rate than white people are getting caught.
And we also had a lady call in a black lady called from formerly living in New Hampshire. She wasn't living in New Hampshire at the time when she called, so she called Saturday night. She moved out of New Hampshire with her husband. She described them as sort of a well-to-do couple. They were driving a nice car. They're, conservatives, right? Conservative black people. And she said they were regularly harassed and targeted by the police. So, even when you are black and upper crust, you can be targeted by the police. So you can't discount those folks' experience. Those people are having that experience of being biased against. LeVar Burton, the television and movie star, talked about how he is constantly frightened when he's pulled over, and he always remembers to put his hands up at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel so the cops don't get too nervous with him having his hands down somewhere else. And he feels like he's targeted because he's black, and he's not a poor black guy by any means.
This is the guy who played Geordie LaForge.
That's correct, on Star Trek. Go ahead, Doug.
I have no doubt that people who are black and Latino are, depending on where you're talking about in the country too, are targeted more often than white people. But all I'm trying to tell you can be that, if we're only looking at through the vision of color here, we're not going to take care of the whole problem.
I agree with that.
I absolutely agree with that. There's two separate.
And B, if you're doing that, then you're pretty much telling the white people and the Latino people and the Asian people who have been killed by a cop, no matter if they're the minority who have been killed by a cop or not, you're telling them that they don't count.
I get where you're coming from, Doug. Thanks for the call tonight. I appreciate your thoughts. The toll-free number, if you want to join us, is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Do you have more that you wanted to say on that, Rich?
Not at the moment.
I wanted to talk about the idea of, I like what he's saying about accountability. I think that is, because I'd ask the question of, how do we get there from here? How do we get to where we don't have this problem with police abusing people's rights of all colors and shapes and sizes, as they do regularly? And accountability would be very, very helpful for that. The folks over at copblock.org do a really good job of this. They encourage people to hold the police accountable through video recording. And I think it's one of the most important things someone can do. We just had, I think yesterday, I posted a video of a guy who was in court, a local guy, New Hampshire native, named Brandon. He went to court wearing an F Cops t-shirt, except he had it spelled out. So the full F word and then cops, all capital letters, right, bright blue on a white shirt. He went to court with his shirt on after he had a conflict with the police out at a local dam. He had allegedly gone 5 miles over the speed limit across the dam. A forest ranger came out, sort of read him the riot act, and he didn't take it very well, and he was rude back to the ranger. Then the ranger said he was going to call the police. He followed the ranger back to the ranger hut or whatever, the little ranger station. The ranger went inside. Ranger claimed he was intimidated and threatened by this Brandon guy.
He felt intimidated, or did he say that the guy took an overt act?
He claimed he was pounding on the door. Brandon says he wasn't pounding on the door. But the thing is, there's no video. So Brandon, it's his word versus the cop's word. And when you don't have video, you don't have accountability because you don't really know what happened. Then you have to pick sides. And the judge picked the cop side and found Brandon guilty. He's appealing to a jury trial, so he's going to get to start over from scratch. See the video over at freekeen.com. More Free Talk Live coming up.
As a pioneer of the e-commerce movement, Overstock.com is proud to be the first major retailer to accept Bitcoin. Overstock was the first because Patrick Byrne, Overstock's CEO and founder, firmly believes in personal freedom and cryptocurrency. Over the past 16 years, Overstock has furnished over 18 million homes with a diverse line of products to suit everyone's unique styles and preferences. Support Overstock and freedom of choice while enjoying free shipping on orders of .211 Bitcoin or more.
Here's a good idea. When you have a legal matter like creating your will or legally setting up a business with a corporation or LLC, you don't necessarily need a law firm. Use LegalZoom.com. At LegalZoom.com, you answer straightforward questions online, and they take care of the rest. They even review your answers for common mistakes and guarantee your satisfaction. Free Talk Live listeners, you'll get 10% off your order by typing in FTL in the referral box at purchase. Don't procrastinate with these important legal documents. LegalZoom.com.
Liberty activists around the country are starting to realize politics alone won't set us free. So what will? At Liberty on the Rocks, we believe the answer starts with living your principles, spreading ideas, and connecting with those around you. By starting a Liberty on the Rocks network, you can make a difference by uniting libertarian thinkers. Find out how much fun it is to build your local network from the ground up. Visit libertyontherocks.org today to get started.
LRN.FM is proud to announce our official listening apps for Android and iOS devices. Now you can easily tune into our streams anywhere, anytime on your smartphone or tablet. Just visit apps.lrn.fm or search for LRN.FM in the Android or Apple app stores. Please download, rate us 5 stars, then share the link on your social media and let your friends and family know how you're listening to LRN.FM. Download it now, free at apps.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Keene in the Shire, the Liberty Media capital of the world, this is Darryl W. Perry, host of FPP Radio News for Monday, March 7th, 2016. Silver is trading at $15.77 per ounce. Gold is valued at $1,272 per ounce. And according to BitcoinAverage.com, the average price of Bitcoin is $413. Antiwar.com reports at least 13 civilians were killed Sunday and dozens of others wounded in Aleppo's Kurdish quarter held by the Syrian government when it was hit by scores of rockets and mortar fire from the surrounding area. At least 4 children were among the slain. Initial reports from the Syrian state media put the toll at 14 killed, but this was later revised downward. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reported that the attacks were launched by al-Qaeda's Nusra Front. This adds to the toll of people killed during the Syrian ceasefire within areas that are supposed to be covered by the ceasefire, though of course the Nusra Front is not a party to the ceasefire and was never expected to abide by it. There's been speculation in the lead up to the ceasefire that the Syrian military would capture all of Aleppo before the pause began, though ultimately that was not the case. Aleppo has been contested for years, and what was once arguably Syria's richest, most important city has been badly damaged. Are you an advocate for free market money? Do you promote Bitcoin as an alternative in a fiat-centric world? Then you need Spendabit in your arsenal, the search engine for things you can buy with Bitcoin. Spendabit aggregates millions of products from thousands of Bitcoin-enabled merchants. Keep your money in the free economy. Visit spendabit.co today. Bitcoin merchants, ask about our merchant suite to reach even more customers. Spendabit.co. UPI reports Florida Senator Marco Rubio won the Republican presidential primary in Puerto Rico, handing him his second victory in what has become a long-shot bid to capture his party's nomination. Rubio received more than 50% of the vote, allowing him to sweep all 23 delegates. Rubio struggled in the contest held in 4 states on Saturday, finishing a distant third or fourth to frontrunner Donald Trump and Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Rubio skipped campaigning for last-minute votes in those 4 states and instead headed to Puerto Rico's capital, San Juan, to campaign there on Saturday. Rubio, who is the son of Cuban immigrants and who speaks Spanish fluently, was heavily favored to win the U.S. territory. The race was dominated by debate over the debt crisis that the island nation's government is facing. Puerto Rico owes creditors $73 billion, and many on the island have called for the U.S. government to craft a bailout package to address it. No other candidate campaigned there, and the GOP has opposed crafting a bailout package in Congress, a deeply unpopular stance chance for many Puerto Ricans. Puerto Rico will send delegates to both parties' nominating conventions, but residents there are not permitted to vote in the general election. Also on Sunday, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders clinched a victory over former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in Maine's Democratic presidential caucuses. Sanders beat Clinton by a margin of 2-1 in voting in hundreds of communities across Maine. For nearly 40 years, Roberts & Roberts Brokerage has been a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals like gold and silver. They also take Bitcoin for precious metal purchases and have permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. Call Roberts & Roberts today for knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760 or visit online at rrbi.co. Reuters reports Ray Tomlinson, considered to be the godfather of email, has died, according to his employer, Raytheon Company. Tomlinson was 74. Raytheon spokesman Mike Doble said in a statement, "A true technology pioneer, Ray was the man who brought us email in the early days of networked computers." Doble said Tomlinson died on Saturday morning, but he did not know if he was at home and did not have a confirmed cause of death. Tomlinson worked in the company's Cambridge, Massachusetts office. An article in the Sydney Morning Herald reported that Tomlinson had died of a suspected heart attack. The tech world reacted with sadness over the passing of Tomlinson, somewhat of a cult hero for his 1971 invention of a program for ARPANET, the Internet's predecessor, that allowed people to send person-to-person messages to other computer users on other servers. A tweet from Gmail's official Twitter account read, "Thank you, Ray Tomlinson, for inventing email and putting the @ on the map." Internet pioneer Vinton Cerf called his death very sad news. Tomlinson was inducted into the Internet Hall of Fame in 2012. This has been FPP Radio News, online at fppradio.com.
It's the Onion Radio News. Hager physicists have created quantum slacks. This is Doyle Redland reporting. The stunning announcement that a team of Hager physicists has successfully developed quantum slacks was made this morning at a press conference in Philadelphia. According to Dr. Daniel Chang, head of the Hager team, conventional notions about the physical properties and possibilities of slacks have been turned on their heads.
We are on the verge of unzipping the secrets of creation and peering into the pants of God himself. It appears the very fabric of the universe may well be a smart cotton twill weave.
However, Chang urged caution in further research after tests conducted last month at the Hager Pants Propulsion Collider Laboratory in Dallas suggested the possible existence of so-called anti-pants, which could, in theory, initiate a chain reaction resulting in no pants at all. Doyle Redland for the Onion Radio News, online at theonion.com.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, launching into the second hour of the program. And, of course, as always, you're free to bring up whatever happens to be on your mind. Just dial in toll-free to 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Coming up, a ridiculous story out of Venezuela about a website not based in Venezuela, based in the United States, Dollar Today, that will give you the black market price for the bolivar, for the so-called strong bolivar. Venezuela is suing that website, and we'll explain why here in moments. You can also join us at 855-450-FREE or Skype username LRN.FM. Mark is now in the studio with us here, and Rich Paul will be back here shortly.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark.
It's exciting.
You were out doing some paperwork with governments tonight.
Yeah. Well, I had pig business, too, and didn't realize that you needed me in tonight, so I had to come in a little late. I'm terribly sorry.
All right, so let's go to your phone calls and thoughts. First up, Don is in Minnesota, and now he's gone. 855-450-FREE, the story from MiamiHerald.com out of South America. Actually, they're sourcing this from Colombia. Is a U.S. website causing the collapse of the Venezuelan economy?
No.
Yeah, definitely not.
Socialism is causing the collapse of the Venezuelan economy.
But as is the case with most communist or socialist governments, they always blame someone else. It's never
Every
their
government
fault.
does that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no government it just means that you don't have to say you're sorry, right? Like they're always passing the buck.
So the story here is that Venezuela's central bank is trying to allege that the website dolartoday.com, D-O-L-A-R today.com, is what's killing the Venezuelan economy. They're claiming the website is at fault for runaway inflation and a plummeting currency. On Monday, Adam Fox, a Squire Patton Boggs attorney who's representing the bank, said his firm plans to submit an amended complaint against the website after the U.S. District Court of Delaware dismissed the initial claim on Friday. Started in 2010 by 3 Venezuelan exiles, Dollar Today has drawn a huge following and the ire of the government by pushing the black market Bolivar dollar exchange rate.
Venezuela's dollar is in dolor.
It's pronounced dolor?
No. I'm just that's a Spanish joke for the 5 people that got it. It's dolor is a pain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So dollar is correct then.
Like Via de la Rosa. Are you familiar with that that song? Well, it's one sung by somebody who has a really awesome voice. You can, I'm sure, look it up on YouTube. But that's referring to the painful way that Jesus traveled from his cell to be put on the cross.
So in this case, if you go to dolartoday.com, you can see it is in Spanish or whatever they speak down in Venezuela. Is there? They speak something besides
Spanish
Spanish
in Venezuela.
Okay. Well, they have
only
Portuguese in some places.
Yeah, right. Portuguese is spoken in Brazil.
Brazil.
Other than that, all of South America is Spanish-speaking, I think.
The current black market rate, I believe, is 1,125 bolivars, strong bolivars as they're called, to the U.S. dollar.
Because they already ruined the bolivar. And now it's time to ruin the strong bolivar.
Yeah, that's right from the front page there.
Talk about sufficiently small values of strong. That sounds like a very weak strong bolivar.
Exactly, which is why Venezuela's mad. They don't want anyone to know what the black market rate is. The official government rate is 10 to 1. So they just recently raised the rate from 6.3 to 1 to 10 to 1. So 6.3 bolivars to $1 US was the official exchange rate up until just a couple weeks ago. It has now been raised to 10 to 1, which is still a fraction of what the bolivar is actually worth or what the dollar rather is actually worth on the black market in Venezuela. So, going on here with the story, it was started in 2010 by 3 Venezuelan exiles, and again, they've got a large following because they're actually publishing the black market rate. In a country where there are tight currency controls but also a thriving black market for greenbacks, the website has been a frequent government target. Starting in 2013, the administration tried blocking the site, and President Nicolas Maduro has often railed against its owners, calling them bandits and economic terrorists who need to be locked away. In October, the central bank took the fight.
That's what you need to have in that circumstance. That's what that guy has to do, right? Like if he takes responsibility, our economic policies for the last decade have sucked. Yeah. And that's why our strong dollar here is in the pooper. If he takes responsibility for it, then his government's going to suffer. By the way, I believe that
he's already suffered.
The socialists have been voted out.
That's correct. Well, he's still the president, and he's been granted
he's got a term, right?
Special powers. Right.
He's this new dictator.
Yeah, he's been given special powers by the court, the Supreme Court in the country, but the opposition party did win significant numbers at the most recent election, which was in December, but there's been some wrangling in the courts about that, and it's a tenuous hold that the opposition has at best. So Maduro is still pretty safely ensconced in his presidential/dictator role. At least that's my understanding.
Milton Friedman wrote in, I believe it was in Capitalism and Freedom, that there should be an amendment to the Constitution similar to the First Amendment that specifically protected pricing. He said that pricing was one of the most important kinds of speech out there.
That would include a minimum wage, by the way. That would the elimination of a minimum wage, because that's the pricing on labor.
Because that is pricing. And he also writes elsewhere that calling wages by a different word from other prices should be eliminated because it's confusing. It makes people think that something about wages are different from other prices. And no, wages are just as you say. Exactly.
Cost of labor is what it should be referred to as.
The price of labor.
So the idea was to put that in the Constitution?
That basically take away any authority from the government to control pricing. To have minimum or maximum prices of any kind.
I think that's absolutely true. If I'm going to, so I've got pigs at my my farm. If I choose to sell bacon at 10 cents a pound, I should be able to do that, right? Mm-hmm. And no bacon consortium out there, Oscar Mayer or the Stone Ridge people or whomever makes bacon, they shouldn't be able to get together and say, this guy's ruining the bacon market.
That's anti-competitive.
Yeah, right. They shouldn't be able to say that. And equally, I should be able to price bacon at $100 a pound. And then if anyone chooses to buy my bacon, my overpriced bacon, they should be able to do that.
Are there bacon price controls?
I don't think there are. I'm pretty sure there is.
There currently are not, but you do run into that sort of law. For example, when I was living in Tampa, Florida,
hurricanes.
There would be hurricanes down in Orlando. This happened at least once.
Yep.
And I had arranged. I'd been talking to people around. I was going to AA then, and I was talking to people at AA meetings and saying, hey, let's get a whole bunch of pickup trucks together, buy as many cases of water as we can in Tampa, convoy down to Orlando and sell them. And maybe we'd sell them for, $3 or $4 a bottle if we could get it. But, obviously the person wouldn't give you $3 or $4 unless he would rather have the water.
That's right.
So he's not a loser by this. And the problem is anti-gouging laws, which are maximum prices.
They put those into effect when there's a hurricane, right?
Yes, exactly. So exactly when you need water, you can't
when the market
offer to pay more for it.
When the marketplace should be limiting who gets water and who doesn't. Because, so for instance, the gas station has 100 gallons of water, and they were pricing it at $1 a piece before the hurricane. After the hurricane, of course, because of the anti-gouging laws, they have to
keep the same
They
price.
have to keep it at $1. So what does the first person who comes in after the hurricane or during the hurricane or whatever do?
They buy
as many bottles of water as they can. Well, then you put a control on how many gallons of water they can buy, but
Maximum
that's what a
10.
price was. Yeah. That's what pricing does. You're going to buy X number of bottles of water at $1. Oh, well, you can put this in the dog's bowl, and this will make it easier to flush the toilet if the water goes out. I can take baths in this
stuff. If the water's more expensive, you're going to be more judicious with its use, right?
Right.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine if you were giving away free muffins at some muffin shop. How many of them would he take for his pigs?
That's true.
Thousands if he could get them.
Fill up the back of the truck.
Toll-free number tonight, 855-450-FREE. What do you want to talk about? Prices, economics, and whether or not the central bank, or rather the website Dollar Today, is killing the Venezuelan economy, which is the allegation of the Venezuelan central bank. We'll tell you more about that. 855-450-FREE allows you to join us on Free Talk Live.
Are you thinking about your Medicare benefits right now? Original Medicare may not cover all of your needs, and the deadline to choose your plan is rapidly approaching. Plus, whatever Medicare plan you choose is locked in for a full year. So the wrong choice could cost you thousands of dollars in out-of-pocket costs. At Health Markets, we can help you find a plan to minimize those costs with one free phone call. You could spend hours doing all the research yourself, or our licensed agents can do it for you for free. Call Health Markets now for free help.
800-978-4818. 800-978-4818. 800-978-4818. Again, that's 800-978-4818.
Health Market Insurance Agency is a DBA of InSphere Insurance Solutions, licensed in all 50 states and D.C. Service and product availability varies by state. Agents may be compensated based on your enrollment.
Are you tired of the cold this winter? Are you prepared for the next blizzard or snowstorm? What will you do when the power and heat go off? That could be our future. Fortress Clothing's Bug Out Bag with our head-to-toe solution is your one-step answer to survival in the cold. It doesn't expire. It doesn't go bad. It's lightweight and mobile, And it doesn't just sit on the shelf waiting for an emergency. You can use Fortress today. Be warm and comfortable if you or your family work in the cold. Be warm and comfortable while you play, hunt, fish, camp, ski, paraglide, go sledding with the family, or just shovel the walks. You will never be cold again. FortressClothing.com is the answer. Your emergency preparedness solution to the cold. Your solution to working or playing in the cold. Visit us at FortressClothing.com and enter RADIO. Buy now and receive your 20% off discount. You will never be cold again. FortressClothing.com. It could save your life one day.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. DVD, books, music, instruments, periodicals, computers, software, electronics, photo, cell phones, office products, home and garden, bed and bath, furniture, kitchen, pet supplies, automotive, hardware, apparel, shoes, jewelry, grocery, healthcare, sports and outdoors, toys, games, used, and more. It's a department store at your fingertips. Shop.freetalklive.com. Get all your shopping done, get a great deal, and a portion of your purchase goes to benefit Free Talk Live when you enter Amazon via shop.freetalklive.com.
Radio is the most personal of mediums. I exist right now in your head. If you listen to Free Talk Live regularly, you know me. Free Talk Live is on more than 160 radio stations around the U.S. and has been downloaded on every continent around the world. Hundreds of thousands of listeners with ad packages from $600 a month to $6,000 a month. Imagine what we can do for your business, project, website, or idea. Email me, Mark at freetalklive.com.
Listen to LRN.FM on any phone, anytime. 213-493-0309. That's 213-493-0309.
Hey, it's Free Talk Live, and we got time for you if you want to join us. Plenty of it. In fact, the toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Also, you may Skype into the show. It's Skype username LRN.FM. We're talking about a ridiculous story, as they all tend to be, out of Venezuela. The latest is they are still trying to attack the website DollarToday.com. We had mentioned this previously, that they were suing Dollar Today, but apparently their first attempt was kicked out of court. They were summarily dismissed by the Delaware court, and it's a U.S. district court in Delaware. And now they're trying again. We'll tell you more about that here in moments. But first, Mark.
If you're over 40, listen up, because I have a way that you can increase your circulation, make your bring your blood pressure down to a healthy range, make your arteries, rejuvenate them in a way, and actually support sexual health too. It's Super Beats. I've been using it now for 6 weeks or so, maybe 2 months. And it's great. Not only does it give you an energy boost, but it does increase heart health. It's nitric oxide. What it does is it causes your the ingredients in it cause your body to increase its nitric oxide production. And there was a 1998 Nobel Prize winning study that showed that nitric oxide was good for you. So check out the website at ftlbeats.com to find out more information on that. But what I'm going to tell you is if you don't feel the results from this, you don't pay, guaranteed. You'll get that energy boost immediately. Over time, taking the Super Beats, you'll get the increased heart health. You also get a 30-day supply free with your order. You'll get nitric oxide indicator strips to use before and after drinking Super Beats so that you can show that it's working. Plus, you get the free book, Beat the Odds. By the way, the other products that talk about nitric oxide, they're never going to give you indicator strips because they don't work as well. The book, Beat the Odds, and free shipping. FTLbeats.com or call 800-951-8940. FTLbeats.com, 800-951-8940.
All right, back to the story here from Venezuela. Actually, the story coming from MiamiHerald.com, where the Venezuelan central bank is filing again in court. Some lucky attorney is likely getting paid quite a bit. Adam Fox, Squire Patton Boggs' attorney, is representing the Venezuelan central bank. I mean, he's just basically getting paid to file failed lawsuits here. There's no chance that this suit is going to ever stick in court. I mean, look, the idea that a website, dollartoday.com, is somehow responsible for the economic woes of an entire country is just patently ridiculous on its face.
You've got some real woes if that's your problem.
In October, the central bank took the fight a step further by filing the suit in Delaware, where the website is registered, accusing the owners of racketeering, false advertising, and illicit enrichment. According to the Venezuelan central bank, the website has been driving the country's triple-digit inflation and currency devaluation by faking exchange rate data. Quote, defendants are deliberately misrepresenting and effectively manufacturing a market, a phony, distorted market for the exchange of bolivars into dollars and vice versa, with the aim of lining their pockets with ill-gotten gains.
They had to file suit, though. Otherwise, it would look like they're doing nothing about the destruction of their economy, right?
Yeah, apparently. Now, I'm not sure exactly how someone running a black market, a website that reports a black market rate, is going to line their pockets with much of anything.
Because these people don't understand pricing.
No.
They believe that it takes a website to establish pricing, when in fact pricing was established already and the website is reporting it.
Exactly.
And the way I support that is we had prices before the internet, you stupid socialists.
I mean,
and we've had this kind of accusations going back a long way. That was
Really?
the sort of, oh yeah, it's one of the constant themes that you hear in the more socialistic countries that people are they either say people are price gouging when the prices rise instead of accepting that inflation is, as Milton Friedman wrote, everywhere and always a result of monetary policy, and
Correct.
only the central bank can control monetary policy. But they always accuse the entrepreneurs who correct the errors that they create in market pricing of creating the problem, when actually what they're doing is they're alleviating the problem.
Anybody whose price is too low is undercutting the market, and anybody whose prices are too high is gouging.
Yeah, the full rules of monopoly pricing in the United States is if you price less than your competitors, you're dumping. If you price more than your competitors, you're gouging. And if you price the same as your competitors, you're colluding.
Yeah.
Such is business.
So the suit also alleges, in addition, the defendants, quote, conspired to use a form of cyber terrorism to wreak, and in fact they have wreaked, economic and reputational harm on the central bank by impeding its ability to manage the republic's economy and foreign exchange system, the suit claims. Now, you got to hand it to dollartoday.com. This is a lot of real credit that they're being given here by the central bank, that one website could have wreaked havoc on an entire economy is a real compliment to them, in a way.
They are a powerful website.
Yeah. The website owners say they don't set the price of anything. They're simply reporting the exchange rate that's being offered in Cucuta, Colombia. We haven't done anything wrong, they said. We're just saying what is true about the exchange rate in the parallel currency market, said one of the defendants, who asked to go by the pseudonym of Benjamin for fear the government might hound his family or friends in Venezuela. So again, they're not living in Venezuela, but their family's still there. Collapsing oil prices have meant Venezuela has fewer greenbacks coming in, and in a nation where almost everything is imported, dollars are in high demand. While the government's official exchange rate is 10 bolivars to the dollar and its theoretically free-floating Simati rate is 205 to the dollar, the black market rate is running almost 5 times higher.
Now, Venezuela is not a small country. It's let's call it a medium-sized country.
Okay.
There's no particular reason that they should have a whole bunch of imports. I mean, they should have some local industries and these sorts of things. And if they had a free market, they would.
Could.
Mm-hmm. And I don't mean a free market as in the absolute free market. I mean a freer market. If you just free up markets, you'll have all of these things.
Unfortunately, they've been nationalizing markets in Venezuela for a couple decades now, at least the last 10 years or so.
And imagine what it's like if you're a businessman and you're deciding, or you're a business, a corporation, you're deciding, where are we going to put our next factory?
Not Venezuela.
Right. You're not going to put
absolutely
it. You're not going to do it. You're not going to put it in these places where you can't trust that it won't be taken.
And you got to feel for the entrepreneurs who are still left toiling in Venezuela, trying to do their best to do business there under these circumstances. We read a story recently about the head of one of the few supermarket chains that remains not nationalized in the country. This guy is being targeted, just like the folks running this website. The guy that runs the supermarket chain there is being targeted by the government. Nicolas Maduro is basically calling him the enemy.
See, I would just shut down. I would shut down. I'd say, okay, liquidate.
Adios.
You run it.
855-450-FREE. More about the story of Dolar Today under attack. Their website, dolartoday.com. 855-450-FREE is our toll-free number. You can join us, and if you're in Venezuela, call us on Skype. Skype username is LRN.FM. It's Free Talk Live.
So you've got to take a state construction license exam or certification. Can't decide on what books or what chapters to study? Discover right now how you can eliminate unnecessary books and wasted study time. At contractorexam.com, our study materials zero in on state-required test topics in an effective, multiple-choice format. So whether you're a plumber, electrician, general contractor, or other construction-related trade, contractorexam.com will help get you prepared. Visit us at www.contractorexam.com today.
Owe $10,000 or more to the IRS?
Get on board with the Tax Admiral. Don't take on the IRS alone. I'll cut penalties and reduce your overall tax bill. Sometimes I can even get it zeroed out completely.
We're an A-rated company helping people clean up their mess with the IRS.
If you owe $10,000 or more, then call the Tax Admiral.
Call 800-287-7180. Again, that's 800-287-7180. 800-287-7180.
Arcade City is a ride-sharing app built by drivers for drivers. It's more decentralized than Uber and Lyft. With Arcade City, you can keep all of what you earn. Sign up now to drive for Arcade City at arcade.freetalklive.com. Arcade City was created by New Hampshire liberty activist Christopher David. When he publicized the idea in January 2016, he hoped to recruit 100 drivers by the end of the month. Instead, he blew past his goal with over 1,300 drivers signing up in just 2 weeks. Arcade City is connecting drivers directly with riders and is disrupting the already disrupted transportation industry. If you want to get involved, you can join as a rider or a driver. To ride with Arcade City, visit arcaderide.freetalklive.com. To drive with Arcade City, visit arcade.freetalklive.com. That's arcade.freetalklive.com to drive, or arcaderide.freetalklive.com to ride with Arcade City.
This Your Family Today tip is brought to you by Boost Kid Essentials Nutritionally Complete Drink, providing your picky eater with essential nutrition and great taste in one drink. Visit us at kidessentials.com. To make sure your kids eat healthy, follow the 5-a-day plan. Serve 3 servings of vegetables and 2 servings of fruit daily. Remember, a serving could just mean a piece of fruit or a half cup of veggies. If your kids are picky eaters, ask a nutritionist about other sources. For more tips like these, visit us at parenthood.com/yourfamilytoday.
The 3 most important things you can do for Free Talk Live are: 1, share 1 episode a week on Facebook or in some other social networking site. 2, buy the things you buy online through shop.freetalklive.com. 3, give $5 a month to the AMP program. It's my firm belief that Free Talk Live's AMP program is the best use of your charitable dollar among liberty-oriented organizations. Support all the organizations you love, but make sure you give $5 a month to AMP at amp.freetalklive.com.
Right now, it's looking like tonight's record $500 million Powerball drawing could be cancelled, as embarrassed lottery officials have admitted they lost the balls. Douglas Bronstein, deputy director of the Multi-State Lottery Association, addressed the press moments ago. We have a quote. "We know how important the balls are to a successful drawing. I saw them the other day, and I'm sure they'll turn up somewhere." Bronstein says it's usually marketing director Ben Callahan's job to keep an eye on the balls, but when reached for comment, Callahan said he just sits next to the balls. It's not his job to know where they are every second of every day. According to Bronstein, it's crucial they find the balls before tonight's drawing. Quote, "We'd love to use different balls, but these ones have the numbers on them." Bronstein added that once they figure out where the balls are, they promise to keep them in some sort of case instead of just lying around the office. When we return, we'll meet some of the undeterred Powerball superfans who are camping out before the big drawing dressed as their favorite numbers.
This is the Onion News Network.
If you enjoy LRN.FM, please contribute to your favorite shows via their websites and become an amplifier at amp.lrn.fm. That's amp.lrn.fm.
This is Free Talk Live. We're talking price controls and Venezuela's economy, which the Venezuelan central bank is saying, hey, it's not our fault that things are bad here. It's this website over here from the United States, dollartoday.com, which is being run by a few expats from Venezuela. They've been doing it for several years now, since 2010.
It's a nice place to be from.
If a guy with a little web hosting can crash your economy, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why
we need to get some websites up. If that's
really, I would love to.
Well, hey, we've ruined the libertarian movement a few times here.
Well, it's
right?
true, but it keeps chugging. It's amazing how tough that thing is.
We're going to continue
like Rich Paul.
We're going to continue the story here. It is Ian, Rich, and Mark in the studio. Coming up this November 4th through the 6th, Keenvention returns, the 4th year of Keenvention. Both you and Mark, you and Rich have spoken on stage at Keenvention in the past, and you can get your tickets at keenvention.info for this year's event, November 4th through the 6th, which means that Keenvention will include the 5th of November this year, which I'm pretty excited about.
Remember.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want to check out what the previous years have been like, you can go to keenvention.info. You can watch every single panel discussion, every speaker that we've ever had on the stage. It's all free. You can watch it all over at keenvention.info. And it's an event by activists for activists. It focuses, zeroes in on the activism scene here in New Hampshire, covering a variety of different types of activism, everything from legislative activism, inside the state house, political stuff, to outside the system, cop block, and, a variety of different outreach projects. And, whatever it is that the activists in New Hampshire are doing, and there's a lot going on here, we try to focus on as much of it as we can for a weekend here in beautiful Keene, New Hampshire. It's a great excuse to come check out New Hampshire during the fall. So go to keenvention.info. Ticket prices, by the way, are lower this year than they were last year because we've changed venues. We're moving the event out of the hotel, or we're moving it to the Elks Lodge in downtown Keene. So we're actually going to be a stone's throw away, basically, from the heart of downtown Keene at Central Square, the very same place where, Rich, you and I have been arrested on a couple of occasions.
Oh, yeah.
For doing civil disobedience. So we're going to be down there in downtown, which I think is going to be a cool kind of different vibe for the event.
We'll definitely have to set up 420 events for both days.
Exactly.
I'll go down there and smoke out on the square.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So keenvention.info, you can get $5 off the already lowered price tickets by using code FTL when you order through Eventbrite at keenvention.info. Just click on tickets. And the hotel, by the way, we are going to officially announce that probably sometime this week. It's going to be the same hotel that we've had the event at previously. That'll be our official hotel, but that is yet to be announced. So, keenvention.info. Let's go to Jeff, listening in Illinois. You're on Free Talk Live. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, guys.
Hey there.
So, the central bank is following the advice of Lenin, who said, always accuse your opponents of what you're guilty of.
Yeah.
The fifth plank of the Communist Manifesto is the central bank, and the central bank has to point out at somebody else for doing it. And I mean, when you started quoting what they were accusing them of, I knew instantly it was just them. And they didn't do these things by accident; they ruined the economies on purpose.
Sure, because it's good for them. It's always good for the people in control because they benefit. They get to reap whatever little wealth remains in the country and put it into their pockets. And usually if they ended up, and even if they end up getting ousted at the end of their rule through some sort of overthrow, they usually end up getting away with their lives and then retiring in some other country.
Yeah, Hugo Chavez died a natural death.
That's true. Cancer, I believe.
They need
sad.
Iceland.
Somebody should have cut his head off.
Example.
Sorry, Jeff, you were saying?
They need Iceland's example.
To take their bankers to task?
What happened in Iceland?
Well, you should look it up on YouTube. Let's look up Iceland banksters.
There's been reports that some people have been jailed in Iceland over the housing crash, and that it's one of the few countries that are actually prosecuting bankers for what happened during the housing crash. Now, to me, that's somewhat unfortunate because the housing crash was actually caused by the Federal Reserve Bank and nobody else. Only the Federal Reserve Bank can create inflation because only the Federal Reserve Bank can make dollars out of nothing.
And the Federal Reserve is affecting Iceland's housing market?
Well, their central bank would have been affecting their market more than ours would. But, you know, you hear the mantra, we should be prosecuting bankers here for the housing for the housing crash, but bankers here were just reacting to irrational market conditions rationally. They were in a position where the cost of housing was rising and rising and rising and rising, and what became mathematically true, if that continued, is that even if you wrote somebody a bad loan and then had to foreclose the house, you would be foreclosing a house that was worth much more than the mortgage on the house was worth because the housing market was appreciating at an insane rate. And people came to believe that housing would just keep appreciating like that forever. And anytime somebody says something's going to go up forever or something's going to go down forever, they're wrong. Prices move both ways because they adjust to real world conditions which change.
Almost, you almost have to assume if the government says that a particular sector of the economy is in good shape, that's when you've got to start running.
Look out.
I'm not saying that that's exactly true because, you know, at any given point, some sector of the economy actually has to be doing pretty good. But, gosh, it's scary when they start saying, oh, don't worry about it. After the housing crisis, anytime they come out and say, oh, yeah, everything's fine here, that's when I'm like, boy, I'm going to start investigating this. Yeah. I need to look a little deeper because I assume they know not what they're talking about.
The borrower, the government, is servant to the lender, the Federal Reserve. And what a national foreclosure is a communist revolution. That's when the central banks, everyone's house is collateral, all of your houses out there are collateral for them. And when the government can no longer pay the interest on the debt, then you can tell mathematically when they will have the revolution or the national foreclosure.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe they'll come out with a strong dollar. You think
or
that would
an
work?
Amero.
Well, you know, we don't have a dollar actually, because a dollar is a certain amount of gold or silver. It's a certain amount by weight of gold or silver.
Most people don't get that.
It was originally so defined, but I don't think that's what you would find in a. That's not how they define it now.
It's a Dutch term.
Now a dollar's worth a politician's promise.
Hey, Jeff, thanks for the call.
Hold on, Jeff.
Okay.
I've got a question here, Jeff. So with the greenbackers out there, what they'd say is the United States Mint should just create $18 trillion platinum coins and pay off the debt to the Federal Reserve, and then go about usurping the green dollars in existence.
Why would you give platinum to the Federal Reserve? Here's a better idea. Let Treasury print up 18 $1 trillion bills, stick them in an envelope, mail them to the Federal Reserve, and then say, oh, and by the way, we're switching to a new currency, which is gold back tomorrow, so good luck spending those dollars by then.
Well, I don't know if the Treasury... I would imagine there's some contract between the Federal Reserve and the Department of Treasury.
Governments aren't bound by contract.
The U.S. Mint, however, can mint coins relatively easily, and you don't have to make them out of platinum. You could make them out of tinfoil if that's what you want
to do. But the Treasury Department could also print paper money. There's nothing to prevent that. To
let Jeff answer.
Huh?
Sorry, they could make them out of lead for the Fed.
Oh, God. Somebody's going to get poisoned.
Was that your answer, Mark?
I guess so.
Thanks, Jeff, for your call tonight. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. On Friday, the U.S. District Court in Delaware handed the defense a short-term victory. This, according to the Miami Herald. We're talking about the Venezuelan central bank suing a website, dollartoday.com, accusing the website of causing inflation and destroying their economy, saying the central bank had not provided sufficient evidence that harm had been done. But the court also gave the bank 7 days to amend its complaint, so they're doing that. They're trying again, trying to sue a website, dollartoday.com, for simply reporting. Although Venezuelan central bank is saying they are creating the economic disaster. They are creating the inflation, which is absolutely ridiculous. 855-450-FREE, 855-450-3733. We'll continue, and you can share your thoughts on Free Talk Live.
This is a life-changing message for anyone with sleep apnea who is on the go and tired of dragging around a big, bulky home CPAP device. MiniCPAP.com now offers a portable device that's as small as a soda can and weighs less than a pound. For even more freedom, you can add a battery that's as tiny as a deck of cards. It's called the Transcend Mini CPAP, and right now you can try it risk-free for 10 days by calling 1-800-945-9289. Transcend is the world's first portable mini CPAP device. It gives you the freedom to sleep in total comfort anywhere you are. Our smallest and most advanced portable design ever, Transcend is so small and so light you can fit it in your briefcase or purse to use anywhere you go. It's FAA compliant too, so you can even sleep comfortably while flying. Enjoy the freedom to sleep comfortably anywhere. Call minicpap.com now for your 10-day at-home trial. 1-800-945-9289. That's 1-800-945-9289.
This is an important message to all listeners. If you owe more than $10,000 in back taxes to the IRS, the tax pros at OIC Tax want to help you. OIC Tax is dedicated to helping taxpayers just like you with their IRS problems.
I owed a lot of money to the IRS. I was working long hours and weekends just to make ends meet. To make matters worse, the IRS was about to garnish my wages, and I needed to file several years of back tax returns. Then I called the tax professionals at OIC Tax. They stopped the IRS from garnishing my wages. They even placed my account into the IRS's financial hardship program, so I don't have to make any payments to the IRS. That's right, no payments to the IRS while I'm in this program.
Call OIC Tax today to see if you qualify for the IRS's hardship program. Call 800-272-9128. Call now and mention you heard this radio commercial and receive 10% off their already low fees. 800-272-9128. That number, 800-272-9128. Call now, 800-272-9128.
Since time began, tyrants have taken aim at personal liberties. Now there's a movie that aims back.
The government has no more right to tell us what to put in our bodies than they have to take our guns or tell us what books we can read.
6 drug police were eaten by bears while raiding a marijuana farm.
On your knees, you dirty hippies! Jesus. On your knees! What's the problem, officer?
Today, many cops who enforce pot laws do so only because it provides them with cushy jobs, good benefits, and a chance to push people around.
I was an undercover narcotics officer. The drug war is nothing but a farce.
The Second Amendment says you got to keep you and your get intact.
Guns and Weed, The Road to Freedom. A film by Michael W. Dean and Nima Vadavi.
DVD available now at gunsandweed.com or on Amazon. That's gunsandweed.com. Makes the perfect gift. Remember, that's gunsandweed.com.
You can listen to Free Talk Live on the radio, podcast, satellite, webcam, and our live streams. But did you know you can listen to Free Talk Live from any phone, anywhere? Add this number to your phone, 213-493-0308. It's a long-distance call, so make sure you're familiar with your phone's calling plan. The Listen Lines are airing the latest episode of Free Talk Live 24 hours a day, including our live shows. Call 213-493-0308. That's 213-493-0308.
Are you a political activist who does things that the government might not like? Then this free ebook may save your life. Rats is your guide to protecting yourself against snitches, informers, informants, agents provocateurs, narcs, finks, and similar vermin. Rats was written by OG libertarian Claire Wolfe. Rats is a short book, easy to read, and available free in many formats. Download Rats free at rats-nosnitch.com. That's rats-nosnitch.com.
You can put the Liberty Radio Network on the air in your area. Visit broadcast.lrn.fm to learn how. Broadcast.lrn.fm.
It's Free Talk Live. We got plenty of time for you to join us here to bring up what you want to discuss. 855-450-FREE. That's our toll-free number, 855-450-3733. If you like Free Talk Live, you appreciate what we're doing here, then we would appreciate your support directly through the Free Talk Live AMP program. AMP stands for Advertise, Market, and Promote. The idea is to get Free Talk Live on more radio stations around the country, bring more internet listeners on board. I was calling a number of stations today, and Daryl does that as well. So we reach out directly to radio stations. We also get the signal on satellite, carried on different parts of the globe, also expanding our internet reach. It's all possible for you. $5 a month, that's what it costs. And you get perks like access to the AMP-only call-in lines, the AMP-only podcast, as well as the AMP-only Facebook group and more. Go get all the details at amp.freetalklive.com. amp.freetalklive.com. You can use any major credit card through PayPal, Visa, or MasterCard, and you can use Bitcoin at amp.freetalklive.com. Well, they're not blaming Bitcoin for the fall of the economy in Venezuela. They are blaming a website, dollartoday.com, which tracks a few different rankings. They track a few different price points for the amount of bolivar that $1 will purchase in Venezuela. So the most important one, of course, is the black market price point, which is right now, according to dollartoday.com, 1,125 strong bolivars to the U.S. dollar, meaning that's what you can get for $1 on the black market in the streets of actually apparently Colombia. They're getting their data from nearby Colombia because there's a lot of trade. There's a lot of smuggling that goes on. People will take products actually out of Venezuela and they will sell them in Colombia because that's where they can get the dollars for them, and then they'll bring the dollars back into Venezuela, smuggle them back into Venezuela, and then exchange their dollars for bolivar and get a whole lot more bolivar because the black market's the only way to go. And in fact, I suspect the black market's the only way you can actually feed yourself in Venezuela at this point because
and the grocery
stores are empty.
So you got to be able to buy stuff from. Their economy is in ruins. People are losing weight there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people who can't eat, and it's because of their economy. It has nothing to do with anything else. This is a rich country. It's got lots of natural resources. They could grow food there, and they become dependent because everybody thinks you can get something for nothing. Well, the old Margaret Thatcher quote, and it's still true today, is the problem with socialism is sooner or later you run out of other people's money. And that's what it is. Yeah, I get you can distribute to some extent. You can distribute from the rich people to the poor people, and that can help sort of rub off the rough edges of an economy. I get that, but the problem is that once 51% of the people who consider themselves poor realize that they can vote wages away from 49%, the 49% that they consider rich, then you've got people voting instead of working.
Ricardo Gonzalez is a defense attorney with Greenberg Torrig in Miami, saying the ruling proves the bank claims have no foundation. What ruling he's referring to is the Venezuelan central bank sued dollartoday.com in a Delaware U.S. District Court, and that court threw it out. They dismissed the case, but they did say that the central bank has 7 days to amend their complaint. So they're going to amend, they're going to try again, and will likely get tossed on their butts again. That's my prediction, and I generally don't like to predict what courts will do, but in the United States, there is at the very least a semblance of freedom of speech, and the idea that this website would somehow be forced to shut down or in any way be held responsible for the Venezuelan economy's bad situation is ridiculous.
If the United States judicial system is going to rule against a website in favor of a government when it comes to the area of freedom of speech, they're going to rule against a website that is speaking against the U.S. government.
Yeah, right.
It's true.
So they just don't care enough about Venezuela to make this ruling.
I was actually surprised they brought this case in a U.S. court.
Well, the reason they did that was because the website's registered in Delaware.
Right. Yeah. I guess by saying that, I'm surprised that they brought it at all, because they probably couldn't have brought it in a Venezuelan court. And
well, right, they couldn't bring it in a Venezuela. I can't say I'm surprised, because remember, they've got to blame someone, right? So they're blaming this website, and this way the central bank, which they probably, I mean, unless they're they could be totally ignorant. Maybe they actually think they have a chance. I don't know. But they don't have a chance. So when this gets flushed again, they'll be able to say, that's the U.S. government. They're backing this website. We knew it all along. It's all been a plot of the U.S. government, because they've been blaming the United States as well for some of their economic woes. And so they'll just use this as part of their narrative of, why it's all the United States' fault that things are bad in Venezuela. The one of the defense attorneys says this, quote, the allegation that the mere publication of an exchange rate in the U.S. causes inflation in Venezuela is pretty far-fetched, he said. Even so, the attorney who represents the central bank said his firm will be filing the amendment before the week's end, saying it was simply a matter of drawing clearer lines between the harm that DollarToday.com had caused to the Venezuelan people and the bank itself. He says, we intend to address that distinction, he said. The defendants have, quote, wreaked massive harm on Venezuelans in general, and the central bank specifically, with the misleading and fraudulent manner that they have represented the exchange rate, Fox said. Benjamin says he fears the lawsuit is part of a broader government strategy, saying, quote, we're worried because the Venezuelan government knows that we haven't done anything wrong. They're hoping that through a lawsuit in the process of discovery that they can identify our collaborators and shut down our operations in Venezuela. That's an interesting theory. The International Monetary Fund...
That actually makes more sense than an expectation of victory as a reason for filing the suit.
The International Monetary Fund is predicting Venezuelans' inflation could hit 720% this year, and the shortage of even basic goods is raising tensions in the country. To complicate matters, the newly emboldened opposition has been floating ideas of how to oust Maduro. Under the circumstances, the administration needs as many distractions as possible. Benjamin said, quote, we're absolutely sure that the government will try to keep finding ways to wear us down. So that's the latest coming out of the madhouse that is the Venezuelan government. It's just a fascinating study of, how governments ultimately fail. I mean, they fail all the time, but at some point they fail spectacularly. And they're in that phase, I think, at this point down there. The inflation rate in the hundreds of percents, the black market exchange rate over 1,000 bolivar per dollar.
I don't think there's anything pulling them out of this tailspin. There are things you can do to an economy to wrest it from the sort of Keynesian spiral.
They could shut down the government tomorrow, and that might help. That would probably help.
That would do it.
Yeah.
Well, if you got the government out of the monetary system, it's still going to take some time for people to.
It'll take time for people to fix it, but they'll fix it. I mean,
they'll fix it.
The market
and
will
it'll
fix
be stable
itself.
at that
Right.
point. The same way that markets were stable for thousands of years with value-backed currencies, they would be again, because people truly do want value-backed currencies. It's only that when they get tricked sort of by these central bank debt notes that they have that things really get messed up. There are ebbs and flows to any economy, even with a value-backed currency, but it makes it a lot better. It's much more resilient. The lows are higher and the highs are lower.
So if you want to join us here, the toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Of course, they're not going to shut the government down. Tomorrow, they're going to take this out to the bitter end, and it's pretty bitter right now in Venezuela, what with it being hard to find basic supplies like chicken, rice, soap. These are hard things to get.
If you're a Bernie Sanders supporter, this is what you're voting for, guys.
The Bernie Sanders supporters would say that they want European-style socialism or whatever that might be.
They'll do it right.
Well,
so more Greek than Venezuelan. I always thought Bernie Sanders supporters liked Greek.
I would say that when you look at these Scandinavian countries, they've done it better, but they're evolving in their economies now too. They've cut out the welfare state, And, and some of them that don't have minimum wages. So you can't have all the things that we have here in the U.S. and still get the same things they have there. Plus, let's not forget that 60% tax bracket that they've got. Imagine working for $1 and keeping 4 dimes. That's not so great.
The bottom line is the standard of living in Europe is just a little bit lower than the standard of living in the United States, or so it was a few years ago. I don't know if they've moved relatively, but you also have to remember that the United States pays for the defense of the entire world. We pay as much for, military offense as the entire rest of the world combined. So that completely changes the economic picture here, and that's where our prosperity is going.
Toll-free number tonight, if you want to join us here, you can talk about Venezuela, price controls, or whatever happens to be on your mind. 855-450-FREE. We'll shift over to North Korea coming up in hour 3.
Currency is too important a thing to be left in the hands of government bureaucrats, especially when billions of dollars can be created with the swipe of a pen. Overstock.com supports the cryptocurrency movement because it returns the power of an inflation-proof money to the people where it belongs. Did you know that you can use Bitcoin to pay for anything Overstock.com sells while enjoying free shipping on orders of 0.211 Bitcoin or more? If you support freedom in the cryptocurrency movement, you should support Overstock.com.
DVD, books, music, instruments, periodicals, computers, software, electronics, photo, cell phones, office products, home and garden, bed and bath, furniture, kitchen, pet supplies, automotive, hardware, apparel, shoes, jewelry, grocery, healthcare, sports and outdoors, toys, games, used, and more. It's a department store at your fingertips. Shop.freetalklive.com. Get all your shopping done, get a great deal, and a portion of your purchase goes to benefit Free Talk Live when you enter Amazon via shop.freetalklive.com.
This is your Robertson Roberts Brokerage Daily Precious Metals Update. In early trading Monday, gold is up $9 at $1,268 per ounce. Silver is 10 cents higher at $15.66 per ounce. Bitcoin is trading at $410 US. Robertson Roberts Brokerage has been helping customers buying and selling precious metals for nearly 40 years. How can we help you? Give us a call at 800-874-9760 or see us online at rrbi.co.
Did you know that you can listen to and watch Free Talk Live during our live show 7 days a week from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern via our studio cam at cam.freetalklive.com? Not only that, but you can also chat with other listeners at the same time. Do I need to mention that both the studio cam and chat room are totally free? Outside of Free Talk Live's live hours, you won't see a cam feed, but we'll hear audio from the Liberty Radio Network. So listen, watch, and chat all free at cam.freetalklive.com. That's cam.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Keene in the Shire, the Liberty Media capital of the world, this is Daryl W. Perry, host of FPP Radio News for Monday, March 7th, 2016. Silver is trading at $15.77 per ounce. Gold is valued at $1,272 per ounce. And according to BitcoinAverage.com, the average price of Bitcoin is $413. Antiwar.com reports at least 13 civilians were killed Sunday and dozens of others wounded in Aleppo's Kurdish quarter held by the Syrian government when it was hit by scores of rockets and mortar fire from the surrounding area. At least 4 children were among the slain. Initial reports from the Syrian state media put the toll at 14 killed, but this was later revised downward. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reported that the attacks were launched by al-Qaeda's Nusra Front. This adds to the toll of people killed during the Syrian ceasefire within areas that are supposed to be covered by the ceasefire, though of course the Nusra Front is not a party to the ceasefire and was never expected to abide by it. There has been speculation in the lead up to the ceasefire that the Syrian military would capture all of Aleppo before the pause began, though ultimately that was not the case. Aleppo has been contested for years, and what was once arguably Syria's richest, most important city has been badly damaged. Are you an advocate for free market money? Do you promote Bitcoin as an alternative in a fiat-centric world? Then you need Spendabit in your arsenal, the search engine for things you can buy with Bitcoin. Spendabit aggregates millions of products from thousands of Bitcoin-enabled merchants. Keep your money in the free economy. Visit spendabit.co today. Bitcoin merchants, ask about our merchant suite to reach even more customers. Spendabit.co. UPI reports Florida Senator Marco Rubio won the Republican presidential primary in Puerto Rico, handing him his second victory in what has become a long-shot bid to capture his party's nomination. Rubio received more than 50% of the vote, allowing him to sweep all 23 delegates. Rubio struggled in the contest held in 4 states on Saturday, finishing a distant third or fourth to frontrunner Donald Trump and Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Rubio skipped campaigning for last-minute votes in those 4 states and instead headed to Puerto Rico's capital, San Juan, to campaign there on Saturday. Rubio, who is the son of Cuban immigrants and who speaks Spanish fluently, was heavily favored to win the U.S. territory. The race was dominated by debate over the debt crisis that the island nation's government is facing. Puerto Rico owes creditors $73 billion, and many on the island have called for the U.S. government to craft a bailout package to address it. No other candidate campaigned there, and the GOP has opposed crafting a bailout package in Congress, a deeply unpopular stance for many Puerto Ricans. Puerto Rico will send delegates to both parties' nominating conventions, but residents there are not permitted to vote in the general election. Also on Sunday, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders clinched a victory over former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in Maine's Democratic presidential caucuses. Sanders beat Clinton by a margin of 2-1 in voting in hundreds of communities across Maine. For nearly 40 years, Roberts & Roberts Brokerage has been a trusted source for buying and selling precious metals like gold and silver. They also take Bitcoin for precious metal purchases and have permanently removed the minimum purchase amount for all orders paid in the digital currency. Call Roberts & Roberts today for knowledgeable advice on buying and selling precious metals and a forward-thinking approach to new technologies. 800-874-9760 or visit online at rrbi.co. Reuters reports Ray Tomlinson, considered to be the godfather of email, has died, according to his employer, Raytheon Company. Tomlinson was 74. Raytheon spokesman Mike Doble said in a statement, "A true technology pioneer, Ray was the man who brought us email in the early days of networked computers." Doble said Tomlinson died on Saturday morning, but he did not know if he was at home and did not have a confirmed cause of death. Tomlinson worked in the company's Cambridge, Massachusetts office. An article in the Sydney Morning Herald reported that Tomlinson had died of a suspected heart attack. The tech world reacted with sadness over the passing of Tomlinson, somewhat of a cult hero for his 1971 invention of a program for ARPANET, the Internet's predecessor, that allowed people to send person-to-person messages to other computer users on other servers. A tweet from Gmail's official Twitter account read, "Thank you, Ray Tomlinson, for inventing email and putting the @ sign on the map." Internet pioneer Vinton Cerf called his death very sad news. Tomlinson was inducted into the Internet Hall of Fame in 2012. This has been FPP Radio News, online at fppradio.com.
Following earlier reports of 27-year-old Mark Felder's profound and startling level of pride in his alma mater, the University of Miami alumnus spoke to Onion reporters about his strong affection for the academic institution that left him totally unprepared for the job market and floundering in $50,000 of debt.
I would not trade my time at the University of Miami for anything. Miami has the best college experience in the country, hands down. I had an awesome time there, and it's an amazing place. We've got awesome bars, awesome sports, an awesome campus, and we're pretty much right next to the beach. I mean, what more could you want? You'd have to be crazy not to go there.
Felder, who paid over $140,000 in tuition, told reporters he takes an annual trip to see a Hurricanes football game and visit the university that failed to teach him any marketable job skills whatsoever, leaving him so financially helpless he was forced to move back in with his parents after graduating.
AMI, fight, fight, fight! Yeah, it's all about the U, baby, all about the U. That's what I'm talking about. Go Canes, baby!
For more on this story, check this week's Onion Review.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us here on the radio. Hour number 3 is what we're kicking off here. You can join us toll free at 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. We've got Skype as well. Skype username is LRN.FM, so feel free to reach out in that way. Joining you in the studio tonight, you've got Ian,
Rich Paul,
and Mark.
All right, so we've talked about Venezuela, and we can also talk about my other favorite disaster, which is North Korea. I'm also fascinated by what's going on there. Mark, you look confused.
I thought we were going to do the BDSM article.
Oh, were we? Okay.
Yes.
We're BDSM?
Yeah, I sent the link to you.
Right. I don't think we teased it on the air, though. So what's it about?
Well, from the Washington Post, if you'll click in there. I don't have my glasses on.
You can't read.
I'm happy to read this, read as best I can, but I'm going to stumble a lot if you
didn't
don't
make that clear to me. I thought you were just saying this was something you wanted to talk about. I had made mention that we were going to discuss North Korea, so let's talk about BDSM here in a little bit. The story from theguardian.com, since we're talking about countries that are dictatorships and awful and falling apart at the seams, I think North Korea is pretty fascinating. So here's the story from TheGuardian.com by Maeve Sherlaw. A generation of North Koreans as familiar with the American dollar as Kim Il-sung is set to dramatically shake up the country, according to a young defector named Sungju Lee, calling those born after 1990 the market generation. The 28-year-old says young people are likely to trigger major social and economic changes in the closed-off communist country over the next 20 years. And it wasn't long ago that we had some of the folks from Link, Liberty in North Korea. They came here to Keene, New Hampshire, and they actually gave a presentation at what was then the Keene Activist Center. It is now the Sanctuary for Love and Peace.
Slap.
Which is run by you, Rich Paul. That is your church.
It's true.
Or part of your church, rather. And so they came and they gave a nice presentation about the Jangmadang generation, as they're called, or the black market generation. That's what they're talking about here, the market generation. Says they're going to be making some big changes. Capitalism has become an influential force in their lives, says Lee, with nostalgia for life under the first dictator when North Korea was a new nation and widespread famine had not yet been experienced, no longer entrenching a sense of patriotism. But Lee, who left the country in 2002 and is now studying in the UK, says the shift won't be a result of a rejection of the regime's us against the world message, but rather because the propaganda is no longer powerful enough to trump the lure of the markets. He says that people of my generation hate the United States, but they love the dollar. They hate Japan, but they love the yen. Some might hate China, but they love the yuan, he says. Lee gives the example of 2009's reforms, which were designed to crack down on the growing power of the private enterprise and revive socialism. This was a huge fail, he claims, and demonstrated that North Korea cannot control the markets. Evidence suggests that the so-called market generation has better access than ever to information from the outside world through illegally smuggled DVDs, films, and mobile phones. There was an interesting report, I believe it was on PBS Frontline, I think it was, like with, I don't know, about a year or maybe 2 years ago now at this point, where they actually had an undercover person, somebody wearing like undercover cameras sneaking into North Korea to basically smuggle in like flash drives, essentially. Smuggle flash drives with South Korean and United States television shows and movies on them that people can then plug into their laptops and watch and absorb culture and absorb other ideas.
Yeah, I mean they're right. They're very close geographically. These are one, as far as an ethnicity goes, they're the one folks. They're the same thing. So, you know, this is going to be really something that's going to interest North Koreans about what's going on in South Korea.
Right, and of course they were paying off border guards and things like that to get their product through, just like the smugglers in the United States pay off border guards here to get drugs through the border. In North Korea, they're paying off border guards to sneak flash drives across with information on them. Lee's father, a former bodyguard in Kim Il-sung's personal security force, defected when his son was just 12 years old. His mother abandoned him soon after, leaving him to fend for himself. So they left him behind. Fending for himself on the streets of Hwasong in the northeast. Lee said he did what was normal to survive. He formed a gang with his friends and slept in the train station, he said. I was a pickpocket. I fought every day. I lost 2 friends on the streets. unquote. In a passage from his book entitled Every Falling Star, due to be released in September of this year, the defector describes the experience of being an abandoned child in North Korea. He writes, quote, "They came at us, waving metal pipes and broken bottles. Everything became a blur as arms flailed toward and around me. My mind couldn't keep up with my body, so I just stopped thinking, and as my Taekwondo master had taught me, let technique take over. I heard that thump of a fist pounding on flesh, and I started..."
Who was coming after him?
It's not clear yet.
Okay.
I heard a thump of a fist pounding on flesh, and I started kicking anything in front of me. Then I saw blood pouring from my brothers' faces and onto their shirts. I attacked even harder then. I started swinging my T-shirts of stones, hearing them crunch against bone. Much later, my brothers would tell me I was like a superhuman, unquote. When he was 14, Lee was captured by the Sang Mu, a public official, and put into a shelter for street kids. The shelter, where children were forced to clean the streets and carry out other public tasks, is more accurately described as a grave, says Lee. He said that, quote, "People died, and we had to bury them with small shovels. We worked, and the food was horrible."
Why give them small shovels? Why not big shovels?
They don't have the manufacturing plant in North Korea to produce big shovels.
Could be. During the potato season, we got potatoes. During the radish season, we ate just radishes, he said.
Wow.
On October of 2002, when he was 16 years old, Lee's life took a dramatic turn. "I cannot forget that date. It was a huge turning point in my life," he says. He was offered the opportunity to escape the country, starting his long journey to becoming the first North Korean student ever to study at the UK's Warwick University. Lee was approached by a broker carrying a letter from his father inviting him to join him. It said, "Son, I'm living in China and I'm living well. Come." The broker told me that he was my father's best friend, but he was just a businessman, said Lee. The man gave Lee a fake passport, allowing him to fly to South Korea days later. Like many defectors, he spent more than a decade trying to adjust to a new life in the midst of a huge identity crisis, he says.
Yeah, I imagine it's very difficult. And plus, it's not like you show up with a bunch of money either.
No,
you get out and you're basically impoverished. He was impoverished in there.
"Here I was with my Korean brothers and sisters, but I was being treated like a foreigner," he says. "Many defectors are timid because they have strong northern accents. They don't know anything beyond North Korea and are scared to make mistakes."
So do the South Koreans not like them? I mean, I guess
it would depend, Mark. There's probably some South Koreans who don't, although there are others who are welcoming and caring towards them.
I would be delighted to welcome somebody who had escaped from some tyrannical regime.
So would I, but think about the amount of Americans who hate the idea of immigrants coming here. You know, we just talked about that this weekend. We had a bunch of hateful anti-immigrant callers call the show. So it wouldn't surprise me if there were people just like that in South Korea. He says North Koreans have come from a deeply ingrained communist culture where if one person says something different from what the community is thinking, people report them. Lee is now studying for a master's degree at Warwick University with the support of the UK government. When he finishes, he wants to apply for a PhD in Korean unification, one of the world's longest-running diplomatic standoffs. He says it's the only way I can go home and see my friends. And again, his book will be called Every Falling Star, coming out this September. And they don't really actually tell us, Mark, what the fight sequence was from here.
It was good, though.
I guess you'll have to read the book.
Yeah, that's the idea.
To find out more. But it is interesting, and the story here doesn't really get deep into why he's saying the market is going to change things. But he is making the assertion that young people aren't as brainwashed about markets as previous generations in North Korea. And from having studied the issue to some extent, having talked to the folks over at Link Liberty in North Korea, a lot of it has to do with is in the 1990s, you may know that North Korea had serious famine. There were people dying of starvation in that country. Mm-hmm. And it was at that time when the black market really started to rise because, well, the government wasn't cutting it. They weren't effectively getting people fed. And so the marketplace came up out of nothing, basically, and started to handle that. And once you start getting food from somebody, you're going to start listening to what they have to say.
There's never been a famine in a capitalist country.
The toll-free number here is 855-450-FREE, and so since then the marketplace has been giving more and more to the people, whereas the government, and according to some sources, Kim Jong-un is sort of looking the other way about it. It's Free Talk Live.
February is National Heart Month, and chances are you have a cardiovascular issue like I do. I help maintain my healthy heart by drinking Super Beets. It's a superfood powder that I mix with water, but you can mix it with yogurt or put it in a smoothie, whatever you want. Not only does it help boost my circulation and support my healthy blood pressure naturally, but I feel the energy and stamina boost in about 20 minutes, which no other superfood formula guarantees. All the beets from Super Beets come from one non-GMO farm in California, so they can keep a close eye on the production of the dietary nitrates. I want you to try this product for National Heart Month. And if you don't feel the results, you don't pay, guaranteed. Get a 30-day supply free with your first order. You also get nitric oxide indicator strips so that you can see it's working. Plus, get the free book, Beat the Odds. And all of this comes with free shipping. Call 800-951-8940 or visit FTLBeats.com. I believe in Super Beets. 800-951-8940, FTLBeats.com.
It's about time something new came along for better selling and buying online. And I found it.
What now, Marge?
It's buysellmakeoffer.com.
Never heard of it.
It's a brand new company. That's why you've never heard of it. It's the newest and best way to sell any products online. I did all the research.
Sell my car?
Yes.
Our home?
Yep.
My golf bag?
Your golf clubs. All of them.
How about your purse collection hoard?
Hey, now.
You said any product.
Right. I did. We get 30 days free.
Really?
Packages starting from only $7.95. And buysellmakeoffer.com will never charge item fees, ever. Never. And this is cool. Listen to this. You can even use Skype or video to show your items.
That's cool.
Yes. All we have to do is go to the website, sign up, and then load our stuff to sell. I love this site.
Buysellmakeoffer.com.
Buysellmakeoffer.com. You got it?
Buysellmakeoffer.com.
Buysellmakeoffer.com. Better selling, better buying.
Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what the readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. freedomsphoenix.com, constantly providing the information, the real news about government policies, and the real relationship we all have with the coercive government, the real condition of the economy, innovations in technology, breakthroughs in energy, health, and computer science. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media. The corporate media, nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but now there's an alternative. freedomsphoenix.com. Constant news updates on the issues that affect your life in the most important ways. With liberty and property under constant attack, freedomsphoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda, and it encourages the participation of its readers. Go to freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. freedomsphoenix.com. The revolution between the ears has already happened.
LRN.FM is proud to announce our official listening apps for Android and iOS devices. Now you can easily tune into our streams anywhere, anytime on your smartphone or tablet. Just visit apps.lrn.fm or search for LRN.FM in the Android or Apple app stores. Please download, rate us 5 stars, then share the link on your social media and let your friends and family know how you're listening to LRN.FM. Download it now, free at apps.lrn.fm.
If you want to move to the free state and you're looking for some real estate.
Oof, I think we've all had enough of that jingle, don't you? If you're going to invest in property in New Hampshire, it just makes sense to support a Liberty-friendly realtor. Call Mark Warden of Team Porcupine Real Estate for investment property or rentals in the Free State, or visit his website. Come on, you know it.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
You can connect with the Liberty Radio Network via our Facebook page at facebook.lrn.fm. That's facebook.lrn.fm.
This is Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. Is there a constitutional right to do freaky stuff in the bedroom? BDSM, the kinks. Is there a right to be a kink? Apparently the Supreme Court has ruled on this, and we will share that with you. You can join us here at 855-450-FREE. You can also get big savings over at Amazon by using SaveItPurse.com. You can save 20% easily on pretty much anything you want to buy. Just go to Save It Purse, saveatpurse.com, and get started there. You do have to have Bitcoin in order to make this possible. If you don't have Bitcoin, you can still go to saveitpurse.com, but you're not going to be able to make any big savings on anything. You need to get Bitcoin to get the savings. So go to saveitpurse.com. You can go there and get started, learn how the site works. It works very well, and I've done it now for more than a year in my life. I've purchased more than 40 different times through saveitpurse.com. All stuff I would have bought anyway. So if you're going to buy it anyway, why wouldn't you want to save 20% or more? You can save more than that. You can save less, too. You choose your discount. SaveItPurse.com. SaveATPurse.com. As we go to the story here, Mark, you found this over at the Washington Post by Eugene Volkow. Besides the interesting free speech and due process holdings, the Federal District Court's decision in Doe versus Rector, visitors of George Mason University, also discusses whether there's a constitutional right to engage in consensual BDSM sex. No, says the court, rejecting the view that Lawrence versus Texas creates a general constitutional right to adult non-commercial sexual autonomy.
Adult non-commercial sexual autonomy. All right, so this is
it's rejecting the view that you have a right to that.
So, the court is obviously likely has rejected the view that you have commercial sexual autonomy and that you can sell sex to other people or rent your body out or whatever it is that you might
which is prohibited almost everywhere in the U.S.
So, but I think most people believe that in the United States, you're able to do whatever you want so long as it is consensual and you don't get money for it. And if you do get money for it, you have to do it on film.
Yeah, most people would believe that. And it's a nice thing to believe, but unfortunately it's not true.
I think in 48 states, you can't do it even if it's on film.
The plaintiff student was expelled for allegedly having sex with a woman without her consent by refusing to stop a BDSM sexual act when his sexual partner said the safe word.
So that probably has to be explained briefly.
Sure.
And for those that, if you've got little ears listening, maybe now's the time that you don't want to explain what BDSM is to them. So what you're dealing with is with a safe word is sometimes folks tie other folks up, and a safe word says, you know what, I've had enough of this, and it's a word that wouldn't fit into normal conversation, so it wouldn't be don't stop. It wouldn't be that.
Right.
It would be something, entirely different.
Because the idea is it's kink, so if you say stop, you're supposed to keep going if that's the agreement.
Right. So
if all else fails, you can always yell, I forgot the safe word, which is usually sufficient.
Yeah, that might be sufficient. But I mean, if yours is fluffernutter or pineapples or whatever it might be, then that's supposed to put a stop to everything immediately. And the claim here is that this gentleman, loosely defined, decided not to stop when the safe word was uttered.
Correct. So his claim was that in the adjudicating case, the university administration disregarded the BDSM context of the relationship and how it, quote, affected matters like consent and related issues, unquote, and treated a BDSM relationship as per se sexual misconduct, unquote, and thus violated his right to engage in consensual sexual activity as well. This gave the court occasion to consider whether there is such a right, and here is how the court responded. So, quote from an excerpt from the court decision here, and actually that's the rest of this article is the court decision. Plaintiff bases his fundamental liberty interest argument on Lawrence versus Texas, 2003, which struck down a ban on same-sex anal sex. In order to understand fully the methodology employed under this line of cases, analysis properly begins. And please stop me if this gets too confusing because this is legalese here.
Yeah, it's I found it very difficult, and you read court cases on a relatively regular basis, so I thought you'd be better to talk about this. Plus, I don't have my glasses.
By considering the most recent of the Supreme Court's decisions in this line, namely Obergefell versus Hodges of 2015, which was the same-sex marriage case. Importantly, Obergefell explicitly establishes that the due process and equal protection clauses are interlocking and each leads to a stronger understanding of the other. In other words, Obergefell highlights that the decision to recognize an implied fundamental liberty interest as judicially enforceable turns in part on whether the liberty interest at issue has historically been denied on the basis of impermissible animus or alternatively on a legitimate basis aimed at protecting a vulnerable group. Those words are just coming out of my mouth, Mark. I have no idea what that actually just said. So maybe someone who is listening to me can actually understand it, because I don't know what was said there.
I think it's saying that you only have a right under the Constitution to particular types of sex if that particular type of sex has previously been outlawed for a bad reason.
Right, that's what it's saying. Is that your protection?
That's how I interpret it, which is a bizarre thought that by passing and then repealing a bad law, one
that gives you the right to
your natural rights. Because, you know, from my point of view, there's nothing that legislatures can do that would change your natural rights. But that seems to be what they're saying there.
I mean, this goes on. Should I continue?
I think that's a little much.
I think that might be enough.
What I want to refer to here specifically is that the court basically found that treated BDSM relationship as violating his right to engage in consensual sex. So basically what they're saying is because BDSM is based on violence already, is their claim, that it mimics violence, at least, that's why it's not protected, is what it was basically saying. Is that right?
Don't ask me, man. I just read the words. You're the one who brought this to the table.
I think that's kind of close to what it said.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of interesting that they might refuse this sort of consensual sexual act, and this puts a lot of people from mild paddling on up to whatever it is that they might wish to do in the sanctity of their own homes in a bit of a pickle, you know. It would be easy for me to sweep this under the rug and say, it has got nothing to do with me, but I'm reminded of the old Reverend Martin Niemöller poem from Nazi Germany. That first they came for the socialists, and I wasn't a socialist, so I said nothing. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I wasn't a trade unionist, so I said nothing. And they came for the Jews, and I wasn't a Jew, so I said nothing. And then when they came for me, there was no one left to speak up for me.
Let me jump into another paragraph here. In this respect, the conclusion that there is no deeply rooted history or tradition of BDSM sexual activity remains relevant and important to the analysis. Also relevant and important to the analysis is the absence of a history of impermissible animus as the basis for the restriction at issue here. Sexual activity that involves binding and gagging or the use of physical force such as spanking or choking poses certain inherent risks to personal safety not present in more traditional types of sexual activity.
I'm pretty sure somebody's had a heart attack having sex.
Thus, a legislative restriction on BDSM is justifiable, they say. 855-450-FREE. This is Free Talk Live. Share your thoughts, Kinks.
So you've got to take a state construction license exam or certification. Can't decide on what books or what chapters to study? Discover right now how you can eliminate unnecessary books and wasted study time. At contractorexam.com, our study materials zero in on state-required test topics in an effective, multiple-choice format. So whether you're a plumber, electrician, general contractor, or other construction-related trade, contractorexam.com will help get you prepared. Visit us at www.contractorexam.com today.
Don't know what's in your drinking water? Better get a ProPure. With the Pro 1G 2.0 all-in-one filter, remove over 200 contaminants, including fluoride and lead. Taste water the way nature meant it to be. Clean, crisp, and refreshing. See the complete line of ProPure water filtration products. There's a ProPure system for you. Visit your authorized ProPure dealer for details on our current free shipping special or ProPureUSA.com. That's ProPureUSA.com.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive.
It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, add yourself to the Shire map at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
The 3 most important things you can do for Free Talk Live are: 1, share 1 episode a week on Facebook or in some other social networking site. 2, buy the things you buy online through shop.freetalklive.com. 3, give $5 a month to the AMP program. You likely buy all kinds of things online. Amazon is the largest online retailer. You can get what you need at the same prices with free Super Saver shipping by going to shop.freetalklive.com. Please do your online shopping at shop.freetalklive.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. Physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
While our satellite channel is free to listen to, it's not free for us. You can help us cover our satellite costs with the chip in on the right side of the page at lrn.fm.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here toll-free, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. We've got Skype as well. By the way, no one has used Skype tonight, but you can join us there if you like. Skype username is lrn.fm. We're discussing a confusing court decision, which many of them are confusing. It's hard to read legalese. These judges speak in a language that is different from our own, even though it appears to be English. A lot of cases, words don't mean what you think they mean.
Sometimes persons are pieces of paper.
Are corporations, yes. And the Washington Post has the story. Eugene...
Corporations are always people. A person under the law is anything that can own property, sue, or be sued.
Which a corporation can.
Yes, a corporation can do all of those things.
But anyway, a corporation is something that was created by the legal systems. They wouldn't exist without the structure that surrounds it. Eugene Volkow is the author over at the Washington Post, and he doesn't do much explaining of this particular court decision. We read some excerpts here, and it was pretty confusing. But down toward the bottom of this court decision, or the excerpt at least of the court decision from the Supreme Court, it sort of sums it up a little bit here. Basically, let me recap this. Sexual activity. The Supreme Court of the United States decided here that sexual activity that involves binding and gagging or the use of physical force, such as spanking or choking, poses certain inherent risks to personal safety not present in more traditional types of sexual activity. Thus, a legislative restriction on BDSM activity is justifiable, they say, by reference to the state's interest in the protection of vulnerable persons, i.e. sexual partners placed in situations with an elevated risk of physical harm. Accordingly, they say.
But my point on this is that I think sex is an elevated risk of personal harm. I mean, there's always the story of
don't tell them that.
The young gal who gets the old guy, and the idea is to get him into a sexual situation that he has a heart attack, and then she inherits all the money, right? I mean, you've heard that. So
okay, does that actually happen?
I don't know. I'm sure that some guy somewhere has died during sex.
All right.
So, I call it a truism. But, your heart rate's elevated.
Yeah.
Exertion.
That's true.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it could happen.
Well, then, I mean, if an elevated heart rate and exertion is something that can be outlawed, then let's go ahead and outlaw all the gyms in the United States.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that they're picking a point on the continuum of danger. Everything has a danger. They're picking a point, and I'm willing to say that there's a point. It's just not the same point that they've got. So I would say consent is your point.
Yeah, think of the risks you take when you play a game of basketball or football, which are both cases of consensual violence.
That's true. Wrestling?
Wrestling, people don't get hurt that much.
Really? Okay.
The so-called professional wrestling do, but
yeah, I meant the.
There are injuries from time to time during wrestling, but
okay.
I've never heard of a wrestler being killed in the ring.
Okay.
But certainly there have been some football players killed along the way.
No doubt.
But yeah, any of those things is risky, and certainly I used to do mixed martial arts is definitely dangerous. You can get yourself hurt if you do it wrong. Everything has an element of risk.
Now, here's what I would be kind of interested in. So let's say you're doing the BDSM thing, and I can't say I have a lot of experience in this, but I've seen like people tied up and stuff.
There's movies about it.
Knots can't be untied immediately. Mm-hmm. So if somebody, say, yells their safe word and they're feeling claustrophobic, sometimes they can get screwy. Right? I mean, if somebody's getting claustrophobic, they get panicky. Panicky people are difficult to deal with.
They probably should know better than to have themselves tied up.
Agreed. But exactly where does consent stop? So if you consented to be being tied up, but you don't consent to remain being tied up, because that's what this court case is about. This court case is about somebody who, allegedly went beyond, the safe word.
Well, this person ignored the safe word.
That's the claim.
Apparently, he admitted it.
Okay.
Well, I can tell you from experience in the BDSM community, what's expected if somebody gives the safe word is that you're going to stop doing what you're doing. Of course, it's accepted that people can't be immediately untied, although there are particular knives that are recommended that make it very easily to safely cut somebody's bonds without a risk of danger of endangering them, because it has appropriate blunt and padded areas on it. And so you're generally expected to do it with all due haste, but it's obviously accepted that if somebody's elaborately tied up, it's going to take a little time to get them out of there.
I'm agreeing with you, and if that person's panicking and they're making it difficult for you to untie them, then at that point you might say, yes, it was difficult to untie them. I was, so that might be considered by the court ignoring the issue because you put yourself in the dominant role there. I don't know what happened, and I don't, what I'm interested in here is where does consent start and stop in one of these circumstances? And obvious, there's common sense, but law and common sense rarely do they dissect, and that's one of the difficulties.
According to the only other article I could find about this,
right. Apparently, the reporters who've read this thing couldn't understand it either.
The collegefix.com gets into more of the act of what actually happened, and there was apparently a phone call, a secret recording of a phone call with the defendant, Mr. Doe, in which he admitted to ignoring the safe word. Doe did deny that was an admission of guilt, however. So it's pretty clear that he just went on doing whatever it was that he was doing when the safe word was uttered.
Well, you say it's a secret phone call from the victim?
A secret recording.
Was it by the victim?
It sounds like it was a recording of a phone call between them afterwards.
Yeah,
so.
and sometimes what you'll do in a conversation with someone is you'll give a little ground in order to get them to understand your point. So you'll say something to the effect of, and this is one of the reasons I don't think that surreptitiously recorded conversations should be admissible in a court of law. And the reason is well, Rich, I understand what you're saying is true, but would you not agree such and such, right? Like that's what they call, that's a sales technique.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, I have said, oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. But wouldn't you agree that you're not right? So that's how you do that. Is it's a way to sort of turn things around. I don't know, and I didn't get to hear any of this. I don't know.
Yeah, it was with the alleged partner in this particular case, Ms. Jane Roe.
There's a bunch of different ways to make somebody look guilty.
Accordingly, consistent with the logic of the Lawrence case, the plaintiff has no constitutionally protected and judicially enforceable fundamental liberty interest under the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment to engage in BDSM sexual activity. So basically, the Supreme Court saying that any state that has restrictions on BDSM would be constitutionally protected by the court. That's my understanding of what we've gone through so far. So the BDSM community is under threat right now, under active threat by this particular court decision. And I imagine once they start to hear about it, they're not going to be too happy about it. The toll-free number, if you want to join us here, is 855-450-FREE. Tom is on the line in Michigan. Tom, you're on Free Talk Live with Ian, Rich, and Mark.
Hey, guys. Thanks for letting me on.
Yes, sir.
Real quick, thought experiment. What if we had, and this is on immigration, I listened to you guys for the last year and a half since I found you. Just about every day. I am.
Wow, thank you.
Big fan. And you guys have moved me on a lot of on some issues, and Rand Paul did too, by the way. But at any rate, immigration is one I still wrestle with. Let's say we have a country and there's 10 of us. And 4 of us have really worked hard, and it's more liberty-oriented, much more liberty-oriented than we are here in the U.S. And there's 11 people that want to come in, and they're from the socialists, and we know that they will transform our country.
All right, hold on. Let's talk about that, Tom. We'll continue the discussion here. The toll-free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733 if you want to comment on immigration, BDSM, or whatever is on your mind. The safe word isn't getting you out of this one. It's Free Talk Live.
There comes a time when you need custom embroidered or screen printed apparel for your business, organization, or a special event. Corporate Casuals has been helping people create great looking logoed apparel for over 25 years. They can produce a single piece or thousands using name brand apparel like Nike, Patagonia, Adidas, and Hanes. Create your logo in their online embroidery design studio or upload your existing logo and they'll turn it into embroidery. Go to corporatecasuals.com/FTL and include FTL in the order notes and save 5% on your order.
As a pioneer of the e-commerce movement, Overstock.com is proud to be the first major retailer to accept Bitcoin. Overstock was the first because Patrick Byrne, Overstock's CEO and founder, firmly believes in personal freedom and cryptocurrency. Over the past 16 years, Overstock has furnished over 18 million homes with a diverse line of products to suit everyone's unique styles and preferences. Support Overstock and freedom of choice while enjoying free shipping on orders of 0.211 Bitcoin or more.
This is a healthcare alert from the Pain Relief Hotline. If you, a family member, or a loved one suffers from knee, back, shoulder, or ankle pain and have Medicare as your primary insurance, we've got great news. You don't have to suffer any longer. You can immediately qualify for a pain-relieving brace at little or no cost to you by calling our 24/7 Pain Relief Hotline at 866-389-0620. Delivery is free and all paperwork is handled for you. If you are on Medicare and have knee, back, shoulder, or ankle pain, don't wait. You can qualify to immediately receive a pain-relieving brace at little or no cost by calling our 24/7 Pain Hotline now at 866-389-0620. Our representatives are standing by 24/7 to take your call and rush you your pain-relieving brace at little or no cost to you. Shipping is free and all paperwork is handled for you. Just call 866-389-0620. That's 866-389-0620. Again, 866-389-0620.
I just heard the best sales pitch I've heard in a long time on an airplane. The flight attendant announced, If you paid more than $75 for your round-trip ticket, you overpaid. This is brilliant because everybody on the flight paid more, and I was struck by how all the road warriors stopped typing and reading and working and looked up. The announcement invited us to apply for the airline's credit card. And the sign-up bonus? Enough frequent flyer miles for a free round trip. Talk about turning lemons into lemonade. With some banks offering free credit cards, $75 is an outrage for an annual fee, but a bargain for airline tickets. For more tips on communicating more effectively, hit survivalspeech.com, where you can see how I got the CEO of another major airline to shower me with freebies. I'm Holland Cook.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com. You can get emailed announcements and participate in contests via our email updates list. Plus, we have a Twitter account that you can follow and a Facebook page where you can become a fan. So visit news.freetalklive.com to get news about Free Talk Live as soon as it's announced and the way you want it delivered at news.freetalklive.com. That's news.freetalklive.com.
In Survivor Max 2, School Bites, Max must scavenge through a wasteland swarming with the undead. Desperate to find the medicine he needs, he discovers a community of survivors at his former school. Has he finally found the safe haven he's been looking for, or will he discover that school bites? Look for Survivor Max on Facebook, read reviews on Amazon, and read Chapter 1 at survivormax.com.
Help get LRN.FM into more ears. Visit promote.lrn.fm for a free bumper sticker, flyers, banners, graphics, and more. Promote.lrn.fm.
It's Free Talk Live. Dial toll free here. Bring up anything you want in these remaining moments. Our toll free number is 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. We've got Skype. Skype username is LRN.FM. And you can join us online anytime you want. Just head on over to freetalklive.com. You want to get your shopping taken care of online, go to shop.freetalklive.com before you do so, because then you can link through to Amazon from shop.freetalklive.com and a few other websites, and then get your shopping taken care of, and you're helping Free Talk Live all at the same time. Whether you are in the UK, Canada, or US, we've got the Amazon that's right for you. Just go to shop.freetalklive.com. So go back to Tom, listening in Minnesota. Tom, you were proposing a scenario, a what if, the island scenario, specifically the what you'd proposed so far, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, is that there would be 10 people on the island, 10 people who believe in property rights and freedom, and that there were 11 people who wanted to move in who are socialists. Is that right?
Well, not quite. I mean, there's 10, and 4 of us really strongly believe in liberty.
Okay.
So we can't say that we've eliminated, borders. We can't say that we've had a great, there's still police. There's still whatever. I mean, there's still things that that a government has, and so we still have the government. So in that scenario, do you allow these 11 people to come and vote and transform what we've done?
So I would say what you're asking me is you're asking how do we apply the philosophically consistent notion that free people should be able to cross the borders of free nations freely to an impractical situation where we have to sort of preserve whatever freedoms that one might have left in the United States. Is that basically what we're talking about?
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know about impractical. I mean, I know that I'm not likening this to any other kind of immigration. I'm just saying this is the thought experiment.
I think that it's fair. Likely, the fear that we have been sold, and I don't think it's entirely unfounded, is that the people coming from south of the border are going to want a bunch of free stuff. And I have proposed many times on this show the blue card, which is the way that people can come here to this country. This is fictitious; it is not real. Don't try to get this, immigrants. But I think it should be that they should be able to come here and sort of register at the border, come across the border and be eligible for nothing except the ability to work. They'd get no free social programs, that kind of thing.
Right. I'm just trying to see if there's a spectrum. I'm just trying to see if there is something. So I get that there'd be free stuff and they don't get it. But what if these people were, and I'm not suggesting people from the South or wherever, I'm just saying, is there a spectrum? If we know these 11 are going to come in and radically transform what we've been working hard for, I'm not one who says we don't need any police or anything like that, but, a lot of liberty, is that okay? I mean, are we say welcome in and we will just, for the next 30 years, we'll have to work back to where we were?
The problem is that they can vote away those freedoms that you have. The problem is the system, not the immigrant. We have a government problem in this country, not an immigration problem in this country.
Right, and that's why I said we have 4 people, so we don't have a majority to do what you guys would like.
Yeah. Right.
So we're stuck with what we have.
And I would say that a person I, as an American citizen, should be able to invite anyone I wish into my home to stay there if they'd like, and to be able to get a job and get their feet up underneath them, and that the other Americans out there that wish to stop me are anti-freedom. That's my claim, and I don't think that it is assailable.
Well, okay. Basically, let's put it this way. I have no problem with any libertarian moving into any jurisdiction in which I live. However, I would prefer that non-libertarians would refrain from moving into any jurisdiction in which I live because they want to initiate force against me.
I hear you.
And I don't call that initiation of force, because if somebody is a non-libertarian and they're heading into a governed area in which I intend to live, then that means that they want to impose their will upon me through that government.
Agreed.
So that's, I guess, that I give libertarian special status in that.
Okay, so you allow the 11 to come on, knowing that they're going to impose a lot of force.
I'm saying I'd let them in if they're libertarian. Now you're talking about Marxists, and Marxists are not libertarian.
Right, you would keep them off, so this would not be open border.
No. To me, if I was in the process of dismantling the government, I would probably dismantle the offensive part of the military very early, but then the last couple of parts of government that I would take down would be the border and the military. And the reason is that we've got a government that's made us an awful lot of enemies out there in the world who would certainly love to come in and get some revenge, understandably so, on people in America. And so it does. It does behoove us to hold on to some kind of a military until that dies down for a while, but not to continue the aggressive behavior which has earned us that hatred.
Not us.
So I want to jump in here. I mean, I want to make sure I try to stay in this ridiculous scenario that we're in with the,
it's not that ridiculous.
The island with 10 people living on it.
All right, go ahead.
It's pretty ridiculous. Because it's not happening, it's not real. But if that had happened, what you're saying is we're not in the majority on the island, so basically whatever we want doesn't even matter. But ultimately, you have the right to control your property, so all you could really decide is, I don't want the Marxists coming onto my property, but if somebody else on the island wanted them coming onto their property, they should be able to make that decision. But ultimately, the question is, what is this government under which you are being ruled? And, what are the rules of that state? Because I wouldn't want to live on an island with a government with that few people that would allow people to just come in and take control of that government. That just doesn't make sense to me. I wouldn't be putting myself in that situation.
But the reality here is what he's alluding to is that Republicans for long enough have made Latin Americans feel so unwelcome that those Latin Americans now tend to vote Democrat. I will use the example of George W. Bush, who got a majority of Latin Americans in Texas to vote for him in his presidential run because, well, he appealed to them. But that and, by the way, a majority of Muslims voted for him too. But the appeal in both of those areas for the Republican Party has diminished over time.
They wore that one away.
And you're right. And I mean, it has something to do with the inherent xenophobia of some of the people in the Republican Party, and we have not alienated those people in the Republican Party. So you have this really difficult situation. Yeah. Will bringing these people here empower Democrats? I think it will. I'm absolutely certain that it will. But I would imagine to some extent those people are just going to have to live with those policies before they change their mind. And Republicans are going to have to come to the notion that, you know what? Demographics are a-changing. And it's just difficult.
All right, well, thanks. Well, I'd like to think more about it. I mean, I know it's ridiculous, but it's a thought experiment. I think
I'm fine with it. I think
as far as
and I really think it's an interesting one because really the libertarian, if you've got 4 libertarians out of 10 voters and assume that the other 6 voters are split 3-3, then the libertarians would have the power to say we won't let. We're going to join with the anti-immigration people, keep the Marxists out, and prevent ourselves from having Marxism imposed upon us.
I would just do civil disobedience in that case. I mean, if you have 40% of the electorate, you can just decide not to support the state and withdraw yourself from any kind of tax support. Keep your money.
It's going to get a lot worse now if we allow these 11 in. It's just going to be all those gains we had made over the years are going to be gone, and then some.
Yeah, your 40% of the electorate is now a much smaller percentage of the electorate.
But still, 20%. If you're not cooperating and you have 40% of the people on the island, and even if you're only 20%, you're still a pretty significant non-cooperating faction. That's going to throw a serious wrench into the operations. I mean, we've seen what 100 people can do in a town of 22,000. If you had 20%, which we don't have and never have had, I'm referring to the 420 celebrations where we basically took over Central Square here in downtown Keene, New Hampshire, and created a demilitarized zone with really just barely more than 100 folks. Civil disobedience, I think, is
probably 100
powerful.
at a time. Although I would estimate that about 2,000 people passed through that rally during those couple of years. Oh yeah, okay. There were a lot of people who came and went.
I just think that your only options aren't the ones you're proposing, Tom. And thanks for the call tonight.
But you need to come up with some other options because I think it's a real issue.
Yeah, my option is I'm not going to cooperate. I'm not going along with this system. It sucks. And I support freedom, and I don't support a police state, because if you want to keep people out, then you need a police state to keep people out, and I don't support that at all. We'll see you tomorrow night online. In the meantime, check out Rich Paul at invisiblehand.church. And meantime, we'll be online at freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live.
So we had a guy call in on Saturday, and he was really kind of befuddled as to why anyone would alter their consciousness at all. Like, he had done a little bit of drinking when he was younger, but he's an older guy, and he just really couldn't get it. And I imagine it's really kind of difficult for somebody who doesn't get it. It's really easy to look down your nose at that point. I imagine it's really difficult for people like that to understand, but the fact is that if you're not altering your consciousness as a being on this planet, you're probably in the minority.
Or at some point in your life. Because some people, they kind of get out of it when they get older for whatever reason. They just get tired of it, or they've had enough of that experience.
By definition, caffeine is a drug.
It sure is.
Absolutely. It's a consciousness-altering drug.
Wait until you give me a can of Diet Coke. I will flip out right here.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
I love My Magic Mud. I drink a lot of coffee. I had stains on my teeth. Then I found My Magic Mud, and I was told it would remove stains. So I paid attention when I brushed the first time. My Magic Mud is black tooth powder, and the difference it made in my teeth in one application was noticeable. With 4, my teeth were as white as you normal folks out there. Please go to mymagicmud.com and buy a jar. There's 150 applications for $25. You can use Bitcoin, mymagicmud.com. Here's a chance to do a little activism while you're cruising Facebook, Twitter, or Google+. Between the LOL cats, the recipes, the hot girls, and the inspirational sunrise memes, Free Talk Live's post pass by your newsfeed. Like them, comment. It gives us more exposure. If you don't see our posts, click like at facebook.freetalklive.com and then hover over it to click Get Notifications. It's an easy way to spread the ideas of liberty a bit further. I know you're busy, but you can spare that tenth of a calorie it takes to click on something. facebook.freetalklive.com.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at LRN.FM.
Understanding your credit score is the first step towards managing and improving it. This is Charlie Sundstrom with your Van Dyke Mortgage Minute. The most influential component of your credit score is your payment history. Almost equally as important is the amount you owe on credit accounts. Also impacting your score, but to a lesser degree, are the length of time you've utilized your credit, the number of new accounts, credit inquiries, and your various types of credit accounts. To help achieve or maintain a healthy credit score, have a system set up to assure your bills are always paid on time. Don't max out your cards. It's better to have a high credit limit with a low balance. Never close old accounts. The age of these can actually help your credit score. But don't be afraid to use your credit. You need several accounts in order to have a credit score. Just keep the corresponding payments within your means. For your mortgage pre-approval and refi needs, start by visiting VanDykeMortgage.com.
Corporate NMLS 3035. Van Dyke Mortgage is an equal housing lender. Charlie Sundstrom, NMLS 134251.
If you can't listen to the Liberty Radio Network's internet streams, free satellite channel, or radio affiliates, no worries. You can listen to LRN.FM from any phone, anywhere. Add this number to your phone. 213-493-0309. It's a long-distance call, so make sure you're familiar with your phone's calling plan. The Liberty Radio Network listen lines are locked into our stream 24 hours a day. Call 213-493-0309. That's 213-493-0309.
This is your Robertson Roberts Brokerage Daily Precious Metals Update. In early trading Monday, gold is up $9 at $1,268 per ounce. Silver is 10 cents higher at $15.66 per ounce. Bitcoin is trading at $410 US. Robertson Roberts Brokerage has been helping customers buying and selling precious metals for nearly 40 years. How can we help you? Give us a call at 800-874-9760 or see us online at rrbi.co.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at LRN.FM. The Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM presents the latest episode of The Voluntary Life. Download it and listen to more at thevoluntarylife.com.
You're listening to The Voluntary Life, where you can hear ideas for finding freedom in an unfree world. Visit thevoluntarylife.com to connect with the show and hear all past episodes. Here's your host, Jake.
Hi, it's Jake here. Welcome to The Voluntary Life. This week I'd like to share with you another idea related to minimalism and the theme of decluttering, getting rid of stuff, and generally getting freedom from your stuff. I think this is relevant if you're interested in the idea of long-term travel, becoming an expat or a digital nomad, but also just generally if you want to have some of the benefits of decluttering, getting rid of stuff, and giving yourself the flexibility that comes from a minimalist lifestyle. So I want to share with you an idea called zero data, which is basically the idea of putting all of your data in the cloud. This is part of the decluttering that I've done in preparation for becoming an expat and going and pursuing perpetual travel. I've talked about some of the related things that we did to get rid of all of our stuff in terms of going paperless and selling our furniture when we sold our apartment in the UK to prepare for our travel lifestyle. But as part of that process, I also thought a lot about what I wanted to do with my data and where I wanted to store it. And I was thinking about this in terms of travel, but I think this is also relevant, as I say, even if you don't plan to do long-term travel. Because putting data in the cloud is the process that everyone is moving towards anyway. And some of the things that I'm going to talk about in this podcast you may already be doing, but I've tried to be really consistent in getting all my data into the cloud and not having to deal with storing digital data locally. So I'm going to explain to you what I mean by that, and hopefully some of the things that I've done will be food for thought for you. So the process that I went through in putting all my data in the cloud was firstly to digitize everything that could be digitized. So music, videos, books, documents, everything that I had locally on, say, CDs or DVDs or in paper or anything else, I digitized all of that. Then I put all that data into the cloud, which meant that I could get rid of a huge amount of stuff that I was storing in my apartment, like, for example, CDs, DVDs, and documents and other things like that. And in doing so, I also looked carefully at how I was going to back up my data, what I needed to do in terms of encryption and redundancy and some of these types of issues, which I'll talk more about in the podcast. But the result is that essentially all my data is safe in the cloud somewhere. If my laptop does get stolen, it's an encrypted hard disk, and so nobody will be able to do much with it. And I will just get a new laptop and be able to get access to all my data again. I won't actually lose anything. It would be super inconvenient and expensive, but the main important thing is that all my photos and music and everything like that will all be safe. And I don't have to look after photo albums and CDs and DVDs and documents and all this other stuff that can now just live in the cloud and really belongs in the cloud, I think, if you want to free yourself from clutter. This is a great opportunity to dematerialize as much of your stuff as possible, turn it all into digital data and send it off into the cloud so that you don't have to worry about it anymore. So the process that I went through in doing this was to digitize everything that I could digitize, and then I had to decide where the data belongs in the cloud. Like, is this something I would need access to? Am I going to sync it between devices? Or is this more of an archive storage that I just wanted to keep somewhere, but not necessarily need to sync to my local devices? And then I needed to decide on what kind of encryption I would need, what kind of backup, what kind of redundancy. I'll explain all of these terms as I go through, but just giving you a heads up of the process now. I decided about all of those things for each type of data. Then I would upload the data to the database, and then all my documents would be in the cloud. And if I have local copies of them, they're not the authority copy. They're just things that I could store locally on my laptop, for example, to work with. So I'll tell you a little bit about each of the different types of data that I got rid of locally and how that helped me declutter and get this information into the cloud. And then, as I said, some of these things you may have already done, but hopefully some of them will also be food for thought. The first thing I want to talk about is music, getting rid of all my local copies of music. I used to own a lot of CDs, and I also had a lot of music on my hard disk of my laptop. And this was actually a really easy thing to put in the cloud because of the cloud-based music services that are now available. I did this a couple of years ago, and probably many people listening to this episode will have already done this themselves. But what I did was I ripped all my CDs and sold them. So I just had digital copies of all the music from my CDs, and I got rid of all my CDs. Most of them I had to sell in packs of CDs for not very much, because CDs are just not really worth much these days. A couple of my CDs were worth more because they were rarer, but in general you can see how everyone's already kind of gone digital because CDs just aren't worth anything anymore. But the key thing was I got rid of all my CDs, and that was great because that was a huge amount of clutter to initially get rid of. And then I used Apple's first music service, which was iTunes Match, to store all of my music in the cloud. The way that iTunes Match works is it looks at the music you have in your iTunes folder on your computer, and it matches it to versions of each of those tunes that they have stored in Apple's big music database. And wherever it finds a match, you actually can get rid of your local copy and download a really high resolution copy of the original. And if it can't find a match, it just uploads it into the database, and so it has a cloud copy of every song that you've got. And once you have everything in the cloud, you can get rid of all of the songs on your hard disk. And if you want to listen to them, you can just stream them, or you can download them whenever you like. And that means that you can have music on your laptop, on your phone, on your iPad, and so forth. Since then, Apple's also come out with its own version of a music streaming service, a bit like Spotify, and it's Apple Music. I haven't bothered to sign up for that, just because I don't really need it yet. But the key thing for me was getting all of my own music digitized. I ripped all of the CDs that I had into my iTunes, and then I turned on iTunes Match I got all of my music uploaded into the cloud or matched in the cloud, and then I got rid of all of the local copies that I had. And now I no longer ever have to deal with CDs. In fact, I don't have a CD drive or a DVD drive, so I wouldn't really be able to do much with a CD if I had one now anyway. You can also use Google to do the same thing. Google has a very similar service. And you can also just use a service like Spotify to stream all your music if you want to. All of these services have different fees and so forth, and I'm sure if I start talking about the fees, they'll change next week. So just look up for yourself which one works best for you. I really like the ones that allow you to get a high quality copy of the original, like iTunes Match does. So that was my music. With regard to movies, I used to own quite a few DVDs, and I just sold them. I actually realized that it's so easy with Netflix and other services to get hold of a movie if you want to watch it online, that there really isn't much point in keeping DVDs. And so I didn't even bother to rip my DVDs. I didn't really feel that I needed copies of the movies that I had. Anytime that we want to watch something, we can use Netflix, or we can rent it on iTunes, or just find it online. There's lots and lots of ways of doing that. So that was another load of clutter that I got rid of, was all of the DVDs. So my film collection essentially lives in the cloud in Netflix, and whenever I want to watch something, I can use that. Or if it's not in Netflix, I'm sure I could find it on iTunes or somewhere else. So that was a couple of shelves worth of DVDs that I got rid of. I just sold all those on Amazon, secondhand. Then I had a whole bunch of photos that I had, both digital copies I was storing on my hard disk, and I also had original paper photos. And I actually talked about the process of getting rid of all my photos and putting them all up into the cloud in the previous episode, which was episode 237, The Tech of Permanent Travel. So I will just briefly summarize that again here. I had a bunch of photo albums with paper-based photos that I sent off to a service, and they scanned all of those photos digitally in high resolution. So I had all of my pictures then on my laptop as high-res digital images. And then I started using a service called Picture Life for a while to store all of my photos in the cloud. And now I just use Apple's Photos service, which is another way of storing all your pictures in the cloud. And that takes care of syncing between my different devices. And it's a really good way of just getting everything up into the cloud. I really like it. You do have to look at how much space you'll need in your iCloud account to store your pictures. I currently rent more space on my iCloud account in order to be able to store all my pictures. But you can do the same thing with other services like Google Photos, and there's lots of opportunity to put your data in the cloud. The next kind of data I'm going to talk about is books. And again, I have actually spoken about this before on the paperless episode, so I'll put a link to those. And also in the previous episode, 237, I talked about books too. Essentially, I scanned all of the books that I wanted to keep and turned them into digital files. Other books that I didn't need to scan, I just sold. So I either scanned and got rid of or sold all of my books, got them all digital, and now they are all just PDF documents that live with my other documents in the cloud. And I'll explain where I store documents in a moment, but that enabled me to get rid of another load of clutter, which was all my books. So now I just store books in the cloud. Again, more information about that one in the paperless episodes. And lastly, putting documents in the cloud. I mean, this is very easy these days because there are so many cloud storage solutions. Obviously, Dropbox is the best known one. And then you have Google Drive, you have iCloud, and you have other services that are slightly less well known, some of which specialize in different types of encryption. And I'll talk about that in a moment. I've tried loads of these services, and I find that some of them have slightly different strengths and weaknesses. Originally, Google Drive was much cheaper than Dropbox. Now there doesn't seem to be that much in it, and they're all pretty much of a muchness. Dropbox, Google Drive, and iCloud. I use all of them because they all have a free amount, and then some of them I pay for more storage on to put documents in. So yeah, I'm using cloud storage for all of my digital files, the documents that I work on every day. Documents are the one type of data that I store in the cloud without using a special type of database. If you think about things like photos, I now have all my photos in an application which is essentially a database. Apple Photos allows you to search for photos, and it has metadata and stuff like that. Same goes with music. iTunes is a kind of database for music. My books are stored just as PDF files, but I am using an application called Calibre, which acts like a database too and allows you to attach metadata to your ebooks. But then I do have a bunch of documents, and those are just stored in folders. But some of them I do put in Evernote. And again, I've talked about this in the paperless episodes and in the previous episode. I use Evernote as a storage for notes and for things that I clip from the web and other things that are non-confidential. And that's a good place to store a lot of stuff that was previously paper. It just goes into Evernote. But I also do have documents like the books that I'm working on, things, my writing projects, things like that. And those I store in the cloud using cloud storage, a combination of Google Drive and Dropbox and iCloud. One thing that I had to look carefully at when storing my data in the cloud was what I wanted to be able to sync locally and what I wanted just to archive. So when I digitized all my data, I had a lot of files on my hard disk that took up a lot of space. And this is, this is just documents. I'm not talking about music and photos and other things, which I was able to get rid of. But I just had a lot of files that I wanted to keep. Some of those files I did not need access to all the time. I really just needed to have them stored somewhere as an archive, and others I needed to be able to access all the time. So for example, a writing project, I'm going to need access to it every day. I'm going to need to have that synced locally so that I can work on it and then have it synced into the cloud so that it's always available in the cloud. And if anything ever happens to my local copy, then there won't be any problems. So for local data, I just use the cloud syncing services. But for some data, I have archive copies in the cloud. And the way that you do that is that with Dropbox and Google Drive and any of these services, you can actually go into the preferences and decide which folders or files you want to sync and which you don't want to sync. And if you choose not to sync them, then your local copy is removed and they're only stored in the cloud. And that's like an archive storage, which then if I ever need access to it again, I can just pull those files down. Just as an example, when I record one of these podcasts, I have a high quality recording of the podcast, which I then save as an MP3, which is what you're listening to. And the high quality recording, I don't really need access to it once the podcast is done, but I do keep a copy and I keep it in the cloud as an archive, which is not synced to my local computer. So it's just stored there. If I ever need it in future, I'll just download another copy. So having told you all about the different types of data that I'm storing and explain the difference between the things that I'm syncing locally and things that are just an archive, there's a couple of other considerations that I took into account, which I think it's useful to think through. And those are privacy considerations